Yo, what's good, ladies and gentlemen? Akulon here, and as always, joined by Rurikhan, and welcome back to the Mythic Banter, your one-stop shop for everything gaming news related and just banter about the gaming news. Rurikhan, how you doing, bro?
I am exceedingly busy, my brother. I have been playing Monster Hunter Wilds. I absolutely love it. It is good times. The game is about to be released. I'm going to be streaming the whole thing. And this weekend, I played some more Kill Team, wherein I absolutely crushed my friend's hopes and dreams with one of his own kill teams. It was absolutely disgusting. Like, you need to understand, okay? So there's two dwarven kill teams, okay?
Yeah.
I bought one, and a friend of mine, for some reason, he likes to collect them, so he has like almost all the kill teams. And he had the other dwarven team that I hadn't played with. And I was like, hey, can I play with your other dwarven kill team? I want to try those out, which is the scavengers. And he's like, yeah, sure. And so I proceeded to beat his ass 17 victory points to 2. Okay, it was disgusting. I annihilated him.
I don't know what anything means that you just said. Like, nothing you just said means anything to me. What are you talking about?
Kill Team is Warhammer 40k, but in like a smaller form. So, you know, the tabletop game, actual Warhammer 40k tabletop.
Yeah.
Except it's small teams of like 10 to 15 miniatures, depending on your army. And you play it almost like XCOM. So you move the little miniature and then you declare your action, you roll dice. That's the thing. And I annihilated my friend, dude.
Hey, that's cool. I still have to get like proper minis for like proper tabletop, 40k tabletop. But that crap gets expensive. Like my books are expensive, right? But
that's the thing.
Gets expensive.
I wouldn't recommend actual 40k because actual 40k you're talking about like massive armies, well, depending on the number of points and stuff. But Kill Team is like it's small armies. Like I told you, I have 10 miniatures. Okay, like the army that I was playing, that was 10 miniatures. My friend's army, because he had like a bunch of like his army is from Krieg, which I don't even know that faction all that well. But Krieg. Yeah, it's like nice. 13 or I think it was 13 miniatures that he had. So yeah, and I crushed the Krieg with my dwarven salvagers.
Dude, that doesn't make any sense because the Death Corps of Krieg would not give up. They will fight even in death.
Yes, they did not give up. They just died. They all died. But nobody was left standing.
To be fair, if you don't know anything about Warhammer lore, the Death Corps of Krieg is one of the craziest. Like they're normal humans, but they are just they don't give a shit. They're not afraid of anything. They don't care about anything. They will fight everything and anything. That's how badass they are.
Although I will say, my friend was very unlucky in his dice rolls. Like at one point, he was point blank against one of my dwarfs with a melt-a-gun.
Yeah.
He shot that thing 3 times and never got any hits. And I was like, oh no. When he read to me the stats of the melt-a-gun, I was like, wait, that gun does what? It's like the melt-a-gun is, as the name implies, it just melts things. It destroys stuff.
It's a very powerful rifle. But okay, so you had some fun with tabletop. I played Pagonia this weekend. I played Pagonia because load shedding is back, so I once again have to live my life in these sort of little small moments in time. I thought
you had gotten like a generator by now or something.
Well, not a generator. I have an inverter and a battery, but the inverter gave up. Like it was factory fault, just burnt. So it was sent away. We received it back, but the electrician that needs to install the inverter is dragging his ass because he's the one that installed everything. So I don't want to go to another electrician to get it done because this is still part of his warranty. So I'm still waiting for that asshole to pitch up. He promised today, so, hopefully. But yeah, so I'm back to living my life in these little sort of, small pockets of time. So I've just been, whenever I have electricity, I play a bit of Pagonia and just sort of wait for the electricity to go off again.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's fun times living in South Africa. Really fun times. But hey, it is what it is. We're back with another Mythic Banter episode. And today's episode is very much jam-packed with a lot of information, but it's not a lot of stories. Like normally we'll have 10 plus stories that we have to get through. Today's is more pointed, I guess you could say.
And we are. I should also mention that we are recording this one exceedingly early. It's my fault. We're recording it on Wednesday rather than Friday because Thursday, Monster Hunter Wilds comes out, and I'm going to be gone, okay? You want to see me? Come find me in my stream. That's it. That's the only chance for people to find me at that point. Yeah,
Rurikhan are going to be playing Monster Hunter Wilds. Probably no lifing it. We don't know yet if we'll be back next week.
We should. I think I should be able to do something next Friday. I think I should be okay, but we'll see.
We might just, even if Rurikhan is still busy, maybe we'll squeeze in like a very shortened kind of episode, right? Just to get like an hour and a half.
Give you guys a quickie.
Give you guys a quickie so that you guys know what's up. But of course, Monster Hunter is the big release for Rurikhan, so we kind of have to give him that time. It is what it is. But today's episode starts on probably the best news you could ever hope for I would argue. Kathleen Kennedy. Now, quick recap before we get into the actual news. Kathleen Kennedy is a woman that is responsible for the downfall of one of the most celebrated studios in movies. Lucasfilm.
One of my favorite franchises of all time, something that I grew up with, and the reason why I'm able to speak English as eloquently as I do.
Yeah. I mean, Star Wars has been a part of everyone's sort of, I think, upbringing, our age, and maybe even a little younger. It's Star Wars. This was one of the largest sort of space opera franchises ever. And then you had Indiana Jones. You had a number of really cool things that came out of Lucasfilms. And then Kathleen Kennedy took over. And for a while, it didn't look like anything was really breaking and everything looked fine. But then Kathleen Kennedy started with this whole, the future is female, the Force is female.
The Force is female.
Yeah, the Force is female. And we had Rey.
It's like, that's not even my biggest complaint about her, is that quite simply the story of the Star Wars sequels is bad. That's just it. And it's one of those things where sometimes people are like, well, some people can like it's no, I just think it's subjectively bad. Like it just destroys the original canon in so many different ways, and it's just not even good movies and stuff. Just it didn't enrich the existing stories and actually just made everything worse. There was like one good movie. And I would say, like, let's say 1.5. Like, I kind of tolerated The Force Awakens a little bit. I was like, I can kind of tolerate this.
Yeah.
But the actual good one was Rogue One. Rogue One was cool. Rogue One was a good movie. But then everything else, I was just like, oh God, what have you done? It's just like, what the hell happened?
I 100% agree with you. But you see, I see those things as linked. I don't see them as, and this is sort of, I mean, I've made this argument on my channel multiple times, because you had Asmongold, for example, when he spoke about Dragon Age the Veilguard, he was like, Dragon Age the Veilguard, and you made this argument as well. It didn't fail because of wokeness, it failed because of bad writing. And my argument is, it's bad writing because of wokeness, right? It's not because of some, like, the bad writers didn't just suddenly show up. When your entire idea behind a franchise is political, you're automatically going to produce something that is worse than what it could have been, because you're trying to push all of these political ideologies rather than just make a good film. And I will be honest with you, there's nothing wrong with the 7, 8, 9, however many Star Wars, modern day Star Wars we got, with the idea at least. The idea seems pretty cool. And there's nothing wrong with Rey being the last sort of Jedi. Jedis were never male only. They could be female as well. There's nothing wrong with that. Anyone could have access to the Force. The problem was with the literal dealings of Rey. Instead of having Rey go through the same stuff that Luke Skywalker had to go through by being trained, she just knows how to do everything. She just figures it out.
She doesn't have to go through the same stuff, but she has to go through something. I'm not like, okay, you need to go into the cave where you face off against your dark self, which they tried doing. By the way.
But this is the problem, right?
It's like, I just think she needs to go through her own journey, and she never went through a journey. She's just like, no, I'm the best. I'm just the best.
This is right? Because you're starting from the Force is female, therefore the female girl boss needs to be able to girl boss from day one. And it's sort of, this is writing 101. The hero's journey is one of the first things you learn in creative writing, because it's the easiest way to sell a hero to the audience is the hero's journey, because the audience members understand being sort of at the top of the world, then losing everything, then sort of having to work your way back up. There's an entire film franchise that is celebrated by most people to this day as just brilliant films that literally took the hero's journey and just made it an entire film. And that's Rocky.
I was about to say, as you were saying that, I'm like, he's talking about Rocky, right?
Yeah.
Because I love Rocky, dude.
Everyone loves Rocky because it's such a human story, right? It's a human story. You get knocked down, then you work your way back up, and you finally triumph over evil.
I was thinking about like one of the first Spider-Man movies I ever watched with Christopher Reeves.
Yeah,
is it Christopher
Reeves?
Reeves?
Wasn't Christopher Reeves the guy who did Superman?
Yeah, Superman. That's
he's the guy that ended up. I thought you said Spider-Man. Maybe I misheard.
No.
He's the guy that ended up in the wheelchair, right?
Yeah. So the first Superman movie that I saw with Christopher Reeves, even that, it's like he's Superman and he still needs to go through that vulnerable moment where Lex Luthor tricks him, puts the necklace of kryptonite around his neck, and he's like drowning in a pool or something. So it's like even Superman needs to be brought down to the low so that you can actually experience like the story, and then
But you see, that's one of the beautiful things about Superman is also the fact that they wrote into it this weakness to kryptonite.
Yeah.
Because if you only have a superhero that has no weaknesses whatsoever, the audience doesn't know how to relate to this superhero, because weakness is part of the human condition. So, the early writers of comic books were actually genius in understanding that human condition and writing towards it. Kathleen Kennedy comes around to Lucasfilms and she basically destroys all of it. Not just that. And she also shits on Indiana Jones. The latest Indiana Jones movie was one of the worst movies. I couldn't even finish it because Harrison Ford just becomes this pathetic little character, right? And I get that they're sort of making the point he's super old now, but then why even have him in the film? Like, why not just have someone new, like one of his apprentices, be the main guy that runs the show, rather than making him look just bad and old and silly, The whole thing about Star Wars, the sequels, was also the way in which they handled writing the scripts for the films, which was absolutely like, oh yeah, we'll just do it like I think it's called a token race in English. Yeah. When people are running and they pass off the token. It's like, we'll just write the story of one of the biggest franchises in the fucking world, beloved by billions. We'll just write that as a token race. So you write the first one, and then this random dude writes the second one. And then somebody else writes the third one. It's like, it seems like a brilliant idea. Mm-hmm. And so it was hilarious that, to me, Force Awakens is basically a copy pasta of A New Hope, which is why I was like, I can kind of tolerate this. And then Last Jedi was whatever the fuck Last Jedi was. And then the, what's the last one called? The something Skywalker? Rise of Skywalker. I actually forgot what the name of the last one was. Rise of Skywalker is a movie that spends the entire runtime apologizing for what happened in The Last Jedi. And I was just like, wait, what? What the fuck is this?
It was just like, bro, these are some of my most beloved movies from my childhood, and you motherfuckers go and you do this. Like, what is this?
Yeah,
it's disgusting.
I'll be super honest. I agree with you fully that I think the best games the best movies in that series was
the original
Rogue One. Right?
Oh,
I'm talking about the new stuff.
Disney ones, yeah.
Rogue One was actually really good. I really enjoyed watching that. I'm not going to sit here and say that it was a 9 out of 10 film. It's no Shutter Island or Inception or something. But I would really at least I would give it a 7 because I had a lot of fun watching it.
Did I ever tell you about the interaction that I had on Twitter with Mark Hamill? I mean, the very super short interaction.
Oh yeah, what did
so
he
what
say?
happened was I had just rewatched Rogue One, and I tweeted something. I forget exactly what the tweet was, but it was like, it's impressive to me the death of the droid, because the droid dies in Rogue One, the whatever, the Imperial droid that they converted. I was like, it's impressive to me that the death of this one droid was more emotional than the death of fucking Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
And I tagged Mark Hamill, and he liked the tweet. Because Mark Hamill was also not happy about what they did. He's like, he's not Luke Skywalker, he's Jake Skywalker. It's like, oh no.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have much time for Mark Hamill in general, but I still think they should have given him a lot more respect for his role in making Star Wars as big as it was. This is this is bog standard for the political writers of the modern day. Shit on anything that came before, treat it with the absolute least amount of respect possible. I'm sort of playing around with the idea of making a video, my final video on my previous main channel, just sort of like a final farewell of telling people I'm no longer covering WoW and why I'm stepping away from World of Warcraft. And one of my key problems is I'm thinking through what exactly it is that pisses me off about WoW is how we went from having all of these really cool, super masculine characters, Varian Rin, Thrall, Vol'jin, Bane, we had
Vol'jin was a pussy. He ran like a pussy.
But you see, the problem is Vol'jin became pussified. Thrall became pussified. Varian Ren, they just sort of went, well, he just oozes masculinity. We'll just kill him. We'll just kill him.
At least Varian Rin went out in a blaze of glory. Bro.
They at least said,
it's like one of my favorite cinematics in that game is you hear the music, ta na na na, and he just like, yep, here we go. It's time to go.
Crap. Yeah, but that Varian Ren had so much masculinity, they couldn't figure out how to write him as a pussy, and so they just killed him off. And
you can't write Varian Ren as a pussy.
It's impossible.
He's too good for that.
And the game now, and it used to be, in my opinion, a very inclusive game. It had super strong female characters, super strong male characters.
Oh,
everyone was super well represented in the game, but it wasn't enough, right? They needed to make Thrall an absolute pussy that doesn't even know how to be a shaman anymore. They had to kill Vol'jin, but before they killed him, made sure that he is absolutely irrelevant to the entire story because, of course, he needed to make place for the girl boss that suddenly is Sylvanas. Not even that. They can't even do the girl bossing correctly because every single time they choose their girl boss, the girl boss turns out to be an absolute psychopath that wants to kill everyone and then suddenly has to apologize for wanting to go full-blown Austrian painter on everyone. And it's like, Jesus. Bro, what the hell is going on with this franchise? And this is sort of the same thing with Kathleen Kennedy. It's this activist writing that it sees characters from the past almost with disdain. Like, it can't look at Luke Skywalker as a character that is revered and beloved for who Luke Skywalker was. It looks at Luke Skywalker as this character that just gatekept the woman and made sure that the woman couldn't be celebrated. And it's like, dude, did you watch the original Star Wars? the original Star Wars literally became a male fantasy for decades. Every man wanted his wife to dress up like Princess Leia. Like every man
But it's like, the thing is, even in the original trilogy, Princess Leia was, she was a badass.
Yeah, of course. She wasn't just but it's sort of that thing of, it's not enough. Everyone has to be female.
And in the prequels, which, people didn't like as much as the original trilogy, in the prequels, Padme is a badass. She's like literally leading a revolution. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, it's pure nonsense. But anyways, the good news, after all of that, Kathleen Kennedy is leaving Lucasfilms. She's stepping away from the studio. We have,
thank God,
no other pieces of information around why she's leaving. At least none of the articles that I've seen up until this point of recording really suggest that. But, as is sort of customary
what I would
in the industry, she's probably leaving because she got a brand new opportunity to go screw up some other IP somewhere. And she sort of looks at everything she's done at Lucasfilm and goes, well, this is all shit. There's something that's super successful. Let's go screw that up.
She's probably like, you know what I need to do next? It's time to go fuck with Star Trek. I've already ruined one sci-fi franchise. Let me go ruin another one.
Or step into Harry Potter. That could be a new one.
She got hired to manage the next Mass Effect trilogy.
That'd be lovely.
Just ruining sci-fi one franchise at a time.
Yeah. Although I think with the stories that we have today, the stories that we're covering today, something that's starting to stand out, and we'll talk about this a little bit more at the end once we've covered all of the stories, but there's definitely a change in I want to say almost it seems like there's major shakeups in the industry.
It seems like there's major shakeups in the industry every goddamn week.
Yeah, but that's exactly it, right? So as the culture seems to be shifting, and it is a cultural shifting moment, there's a lot of things happening in the world, and it appears, at least on the offset, as if many people are okay with the culture shifting away from whatever the hell these last 2 decades was, with games being completely destroyed and just weird.
It's not 2 decades.
Yeah, 1 decade. Just over a decade, maybe. But whatever the last decade was, it seems like most people are okay with us not repeating that. Like, whatever the hell happened in the last, I wouldn't even say decade, like the last 5 or 6 years, most people are like, we could probably not do that again, and that'd be great. So it does seem like studios are starting to wake up and go, okay, wait, maybe all of this stuff that we've been pushing, maybe all of the stuff that we thought was important is less important. It's not that, I think suddenly studios are going to turn around and say, well, no more diversity anywhere. We're not going to have any female characters, not going to have any black characters. I don't think they're going to do that. I think it's more just a case of they thought that the diversity stuff was more important than quality, and actually just getting good stories out.
It's not even about female characters or black characters or whatever. It's not even about that. It's just about, the characters need to have something more in the story than like, aha, I'm a female. That's the only important thing about me. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying
again. We've had female-led games that were absolutely phenomenal in the past 5 to 6 years.
Of course,
we've had black character-led games that were absolutely phenomenal as well. And I'm sure that they're just like that. There's plenty of other minority games that are absolutely phenomenal. Like, straight up, it's just a matter of writing those characters as cool characters more so than like the only thing important about this character is its race or its gender or some other stereotype.
Yeah, that's why I said the focus for the last 5-6 years was diversity first, right? So nothing else matters as long as it's diverse. And I think the studios or the industry is starting to wake up to the idea of, no, that's actually very little importance to the gamers. What they want is cool stories. And if it's a cool story and then you also have diversity, gamers couldn't give 2 shits. They'll play that game as long as it's cool. I think Baldur's Gate stands as a testament to this. It has a phenomenal story, phenomenal gameplay. It's basically as close to the perfect game as you can get. It has diversity, but most gamers don't give a shit about that diversity. They enjoy the game, and so the diversity just feels cool as a part of it, right? It just adds to the overall fun that you're having in the game. And I think the industry is sort of starting to wake up to that. But of course, let's talk about the industry, Kathleen Kennedy being gone. So, Rurikhan, it seems like Kathleen Kennedy is once again doing well. Not Kathleen Kennedy. I'm sort of talking out of my ass here.
I was like, what?
I almost blamed her for this. But
now?
I'm almost blaming her for this, but I don't know yet if she's part of this now. But so Ubisoft, you remember Ubisoft, right? They're still around.
Oh, they're still here?
They're still
here. I thought
here.
they were gone. Damn.
No.
I guess they're still gonna pump a last one out, huh? They're gonna be like, no, guys, I got another one in me.
So Ubisoft,
I can ruin one more game.
Yeah. So Ubisoft thought, you know what we haven't done in a while is offend an entire nation. We've been offending the Japanese, but that's sort of getting old. The Japanese are way too polite to really, fight back.
To get offended?
Yeah, so
although, listen, that is actually changing, okay? Japanese people are kind of done with all these fucking streamers going over there and acting like absolute fucking assholes, which is good. I hope that some of these streamers get beat up in the fucking streets of Japan. That's what you fucking get for being a disrespectful little shit. You get what you deserve. Like, fuck that, bro. Japanese people are so absolutely polite and nice, and these streamers just go there like insulting their culture. Fuck them.
Yeah.
Like, so when I visit Japan, I want the people to be receptive, not to think, oh, here is another fucking gaijin coming out of nowhere to fucking harass us.
Wait, what the hell is a gaijin?
Foreigner.
Oh.
That's their term for a foreigner. Gaijin.
Such a cool term.
It is.
Sounds like you're a ninja or some shit.
Gaijin. Yeah. Well, it's used in a very derogatory way usually, though. It's like gaijin.
That sounds cool as shit.
Whenever they say gaijin, it's like usually it's in a disrespectful way. Yeah.
That's fine. I'm still a ninja or some shit.
You're not a ninja.
Sounds like I'm a ninja. But okay, so Ubisoft thought to themselves, you know what? We feel like we should be offending more nations with Ubisoft Shadows.
Okay.
Japan can't be the only ones. Yeah, so Ubisoft decides to include the authentic, historically accurate boba tea recipe from Taiwan in the collector's edition of the Japanese Assassin's Creed Shadows. Because boba tea is Taiwanese. It's not Japanese. You can get boba tea in Japan, but it is originally from Taiwan. At the time the game takes place, it would not have been in Japan. The Japanese people would not have drank boba tea as anything. So Ubisoft just sort of went, what is Asian on Google? Went boba tea and said, yep, slap that into it. So no research done.
Bro, I swear to God, and listen, I do not use this term loosely, but I swear to God, bro, that like almost everything coming out of Ubisoft in terms of Japan is like the most racist shit. Like, Jesus Christ, bro.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
It genuinely feels like they're not even doing... And guys, this is a bit more of a fun story. It's not like the end of the world. It's not like they're putting literal cultural protected shrines in the game that you can just destroy. And also the first time
the broken Tory gate,
Or in every other Ubisoft game, if you kill civilians, the game desyncs and you have to start over. Except
no way.
In Assassin's Creed Shadows.
By the way, it doesn't instantly desync. You got to kill like 3 or 4 people before it desyncs.
No. In Assassin's Creed Shadows, you can go full-blown Austrian painter on the Japanese residents. But if you kill one of the European peddlers, desync. This was one of the things that was revealed.
There's no. I don't believe that.
It was a big story over on X. it was a big story on X. Some of the people who got their preview builds. Now, I at the time, and I hate that I have to stand up for Ubisoft here. I at the time said, look, this is a preview build. It's most likely an older build, so it might be that a lot of this is already changed. Right?
I can't believe that. No, but it's like, if it's already changed, why would it? Because, this is just an NPC flag. Why would you flag the European NPCs as, okay, you can't kill these ones, but the Japanese NPCs, like, you can butcher these at will? Like, bro, Ubisoft is like, there's just something. I mean, we've said it a million times. There's something fundamentally wrong with that goddamn studio. This is why they're crashing down. Usually the things that I focus on is like, your business practices are fucking atrocious and you're getting exactly what you deserve. But Jesus Christ, bro, everything you're describing is just blowing my mind. Like, I would not expect that. I would not expect that at all.
I was surprised by it, but it should also be mentioned that the videos that was shared of the preview build could have been highly selective, right? So it might be that you can't even kill Japanese peddlers, right? So the people that's selling stuff to you, if you kill them, it also desyncs you. So it could be just that they flagged all of the sort of traders, but they didn't flag the normal NPCs. But people were making full-blown videos of them just slaughtering everyone around the temple, then running into the temple, destroying the temple, and nothing happens. Like, the game doesn't desync, it doesn't stop anything. So, make with that what you will. I'm sure Ubisoft will just flag that, and it will probably not be in the final release. But this is just another one of those where Ubisoft decides to use something, and for those of you that don't quite understand what we're talking about here, Ubisoft, first and foremost, releases this game with clearly no knowledge of how seasons work in Japan. You have rice fields at the same time as you have the lotus trees blooming. You have watermelons at a time where watermelon wouldn't even have been in the game. It's sort of like, okay, so in that world, in that part of the world, so it's super confusing as to what this game really even is. Basically, no research went into this. Then they decide to use a broken Torii Gate. A broken Torii Gate, by the way, that looks suspiciously like the broken Torii Gate after the nuclear bombs was dropped on Japan, just as marketing for their brand new video game. A time that Japanese people probably doesn't want to celebrate with the launch of a brand new game. It's just being used in the launch of the brand new game.
And the absolute disrespect of their own franchise by just, let's just get this one piece katana. This exposition that we're doing for Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's like, bro, do you even care? Because the thing is, I think that was probably literally the cheapest katana that you could buy on Amazon.
Yep.
There's like, get like a cheap red katana. That'll do it. It's like, bro, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. What are you doing? It's Jesus. I can't believe that
it truly is disgusting. And then you have the boba tea recipe, and actual Taiwanese people were the first to point this out on X. Just going like, dude, boba tea is ours. It doesn't belong to Japan. Why are you saying this is a Japanese recipe? Like, what are you talking about?
It's like being a Portuguese person, considering that my ancestors had a lot of dealings with Japan. It'd be like, Ubisoft has decided to celebrate the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows with a recipe for bacalhau à brás, which is a typical Portuguese dish of codfish. It's like, it's a Japanese dish, bacalhau à brás. It's like, what the hell, bro?
Yeah, they'd celebrate. They'd celebrate the moments in history. Ubisoft is just making a fool of themselves. But to make matters worse, the entire game leaked on the black market. You can download the entire Assassin's Creed Shadows right now from torrent sites.
So, I'm gonna be real. I think that part sucks. Because, like, as much as I hate Ubisoft, it's like, I'm thinking about all of the developers and all of the work that they've put into the game. And their higher-ups are fucking idiots that keep fucking shit up. It's like, hey, Boba tea, I'm so smart. Hey, broken Torii Gate, I'm so smart. It's like, obviously there's a bunch of idiots there. But imagine what it's like. Maybe you're somebody that was working on combat systems or, art or whatever. And suddenly, like, all of your work is just out there and everything is leaked and what... I don't celebrate the leaking of it. I will celebrate Ubisoft going down in flames, but leaking a whole video game, it's fucked up. It's
See, but
fucked up.
I sort of feel like
they probably deserve it, but still.
I think this is indicative because you have to think, how does an entire game get leaked? It gets leaked by one of the developers. One of the developers leaks it. This tells you that
that doesn't make it right, though.
No, obviously not. Obviously not. I'm in full agreement with you, by the way. I don't think games should ever be leaked ahead of time. But I also think that it wouldn't happen if developers were actually happy working at a studio. If developers were actually proud of the games that they were working on. For example, I highly doubt that you're going to get a Monster Hunter leaked months ahead of time by its own developers. That's just
data mined to shit, though, but yes.
Yeah, sadly, data mining is another conversation that at some point we in the industry will have to grapple with. I saw your tweet earlier this week where you sort of said the last images of the last boss were...
That wasn't even a data mine. You know what that was? That was a Spanish publication that just didn't give a fuck. They're like, yep, they broke not only the embargo timeline, which embargo is like, okay, you can release your review at this time. They're like, yeah, we don't care. And they just released it anyway. And besides that, they broke the content restrictions, which specifically say, do not show any monsters past this point. And they're like, so here's the final boss with a nice little screenshot. It was the second screenshot on their review, bro, with the final boss's name. I was like, bro, what are you doing?
You see,
this is insane.
You see, but I think I don't. This is the state of our industry. Most of the mainstream media has been gutted. The good the good journalists that used to be there no longer work at these outlets. You know, your Jason Schreier, for example, moved on to Bloomberg because, well, Kotaku is effectively dead. And you have basically the people that's left are incompetent. They're people who's just there to pull a salary and sort of write drivel, whatever comes to mind. Because any journalist with any integrity, I mean, YouTubers have more integrity than that. If a YouTuber gets an early review for a game, they follow the embargo to the letter because they want to get more, right? They want to be included more into it. You'll very rarely, and what's super interesting, when you do get YouTubers that sort of leak shit ahead of time, that YouTuber gets raped, not just by the community, but by other YouTubers. Like if Rurikhan suddenly decided to just show the final battle of Monster Hunter, he would be destroyed.
You wouldn't even need like other YouTubers. My audience would murder me.
Yeah, but I mean, your audience would murder you, but the other YouTubers in the Monster Hunter space would not sit by and just allow this to happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Because this is sacred to us. This is something that matters.
Yeah,
Gaming matters. So it's kind of sad to see this stuff happen, but at the same time, if you had happy developers, probably it doesn't happen, right? Probably this doesn't happen if developers are actually proud of the shit that they're doing.
It's one of the things that we've talked about often, which is in some of these AAA studios like Ubisoft, Bungie, Electronic Arts, what happens is the incompetence is in the leadership. And the leadership never suffers for the level of incompetence that they put into their games. Yeah. And so eventually you end up with developers that are like, please. I remember specifically there was like a news story that was reported on from Destiny where the developers were literally begging their superiors, please let us fix this before we release. Please let us fix this for the players. And the fucking leadership's like, don't care. I need to buy my next sports car. Yep. Push that shit out. Like, we don't care. And they're like, please, for the love of God, this is ridiculous. Because they're proud of their fucking work. They're like, bro, this is something that I worked on. I'm proud of this.
Well,
please.
They want to be proud of their work. They're not proud of their work because it's broken.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
it comes out broken and fucking disrespectful and all of these other things.
I mean, I highly respect developers that still want to go above and beyond and want to provide quality. But I'm also, it's sort of weird because you get a lot of people that excuse dev behavior and say only blame the executives, like Mark Dara. I reacted to his video, and then Asmongold reacted to my reaction to his video.
Hey.
Yeah. At least there's a 6-minute part where I explain where Gamergate started and where this war started, because Mark Dara is basically making this entire 12-minute video saying you can't blame the developers because it's not their fault. You should blame the rich people at the top. And it's like, well, no, you can't say that. If a game is badly written, that's not Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson didn't write the script for Dragon Age: The Veilguard. That's the writers of Dragon Age: The Veilguard. And while I don't know specifically which one wrote Tasha's story, I do know that the lead writer allowed that story to be written. So I will attack the lead writer for allowing that story to go through.
Attacking is a strong word. Criticize.
Yeah, but I mean, they call anything that you say that is negative attacks.
But what I'm saying is you need to use proper language so that people don't. Because what's going to happen is people will clip this and be like, Akalon says he's attacking a developer. And it's like, I understand what you're saying, but you need to be very careful with the words that you use as well in order to prevent. Because it's very easy to misinterpret and twist the words that you're saying.
Well, okay, I will say I am verbally abusing the lead writer of Dragon Age Development.
Why you need to just criticize him? Why you got to verbally abuse the person?
Because it's strong criticism.
Strong criticism. What the fuck? It's like criticize. Say, hey, you wrote this thing and I didn't like it. Boom. That's all it needs to be.
And you're a bad writer and I wish you would lose your job.
Damn. That's a little bit harsh. But
I do because I don't want them working in the industry.
That's fine. If that's the way that you feel, that's fine. I'm just saying, like, because when you say attack, right?
Yeah.
When you say attack, what people take from that is harassment, is hate campaigns. That's what people are getting out of it, which is why I'm saying I know that's not what you want to say.
Yeah, no, I mean,
calling to attention. Use the right words, or you will get quoted out of context, and people will misinterpret your intentions.
I think also people need to understand context, right? Very few people are harassed in the gaming industry.
Yeah, let me just tell you something, Akalon. From what I've seen from dramas and shit, nobody cares about the context of a 30-second clip. They will clip you saying, "I will attack this person," and that is it.
Yeah,
that's the clip.
You are
and then
correct.
Everybody will draw their conclusions from that because this is the TikTok generation, and very few people care about context. Like whenever I see somebody like some clip from someone, I will go like, okay. Let's try to find the source. Where did this come from? And let me actually see what happened before and after this clip so that we can actually understand what is being said. But a majority of people is like, nope, I saw this on TikTok. I know exactly what this person meant. And here's what I think about it. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
No, but I also want to say to anyone that might be thinking, oh, he's talking about harassment, just like Rurikhan said now. Very few developers in this industry get harassed by doing nothing. This is one of the things I said in the Mark Dara thing. It's usually, like, look, if you're just a developer that worked on Dragon Age: The Veilguard, most of the audience don't even know who you are. Right? They have no idea who you are because they couldn't care less. Most gamers don't read the credits of the game to find the person responsible for whatever. It's usually the people that clap back and that start insulting or get into these sort of verbal wars with gamers. Yeah. They're the ones that get harassed. But that's usually because either they started it or they kept fanning the flames. And then eventually what they realize is, oh, I'm one person versus the internet. So, of course, I'm going to get a hell of a lot more hate than what I can dish out. And then they cry harassment. And it's like, well, you maybe should not have started this war with the internet in the first place, and you should have just shut the hell up, right? But
it's like, listen, here's where I'm at when it comes to this. So, number one of the biggest problems with this is generalization. So it's like, just because you have some random person on the internet that happens to be a gamer insult you, this does not give you the right to instantly turn around and say all gamers are this one person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a big problem in the situations that I usually see. It's the whole thing that generates that whole gamers TM thing, which I'm just like, no, not all gamers are like that. And it's been proven time and time again that overall the existence of the gaming community is a net benefit to all the communities that surround it.
Yeah.
And this is like, if people, I know that some people will hear me say this and they'll be like, no, I completely, go watch the Matt Pat video from like 2018. Okay. Yeah. See to how many causes at least just on YouTube alone, see to how many causes gamers have contributed in a more than positive way, going out of their way to making everybody's lives better. And then you get like this one random person on the internet screaming insults or whatever, and suddenly the entirety of the gaming community is judged based on one random bad apple. Yeah. This happens all the fucking time. And personally, I'm kind of sick of that stuff. So that's number one. And number two, I think that even if a developer goes and makes that fallacy, we as a gaming community should be very careful in the response because, like you were saying, you should expect to get harassed. Like, no, nobody should expect to get harassed. You shouldn't harass people, period. Like, it's probably going to happen because there are bad apples in the community. Absolutely. Every community has bad apples, period. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter which community you're talking about. Everybody's got bad apples. This includes even the communities that you guys might think that like, no. This community passes my purity test. There's absolutely not a single evil person in here. Absolutely there is. Shit. There's somebody in your family that you probably fucking hate because they're a goddamn scumbag. I know there's people like that in my family. So everybody's got that one black sheep in your family. So imagine that in a community of people. There's always going to be somebody who is going to resort to harassment and all of that stuff. That being said, that should not be the standard through which we operate, where it's like, well, if you clap back at gamers, then you should expect harassment.
Well, no, I would say
we should eventually be better than that.
You see, but
that's the way that I look at it.
When you clap back, so for example, when you have a game that is as bad as Dragon Age the Veilguard, and gamers are rightfully criticizing your game for being bad, and you then start clapping back at the gamers, accusing them of not knowing what they're talking about, and accusing them of just being racist or misogynist or bigoted or whatever, you have to expect that gamers are going to rake you. They're going to absolutely slap you. And then you can't turn around and go, oh, they're harassing me. No, you poke the bear.
If you scream insults at people, guess what? People don't like that. I know. It's shocking.
Yeah, you poked the bear. Like, you should not have poked the bear. You decided to do it. Now the bear is angry. Now you can't go, oh, shit, save me from the bear. No, you poked it first. Like, this is just how it is now.
But like I said, we should be careful as a community in the way that we push back when such things happen to prevent us constantly getting labeled as, evil and all of the other terms that get thrown at the gaming community randomly. That's the way that I personally look at it.
I agree with you.
The thing is also, a lot of developers need to be able to argue their case without resorting to these terms that you just brought up of for instance, because I criticized Tasha's story. I said that I felt like, okay, this is forced. Yeah. This is forced, and I don't think that this is something that you organically put in the story. You made this specifically to provoke people. Okay. Yeah. And it's like, I need you to defend this scene that you put in the video game the very same way that if like I say something in a video, literally everything that I say in a video is going to be, scrutinied by my community. They're going to be looking at, okay, Rurikhan, you said this in this video. So, I need to be able to prepare to defend whatever I said in a video or to apologize because I'm wrong. Yeah. One of those two things needs to happen. It's like, I either apologize, I fucked up in that video, or here's why I said the thing that I said and I stand by it, and then people cannot agree with it if that's what they want. That's perfectly fine. But you need to be able to defend it without resorting to just insulting people. Yeah. That's the thing. I usually avoid insulting people as much as I possibly can because you're never going to convince somebody to change their mind or educate them in a specific topic or whatever, if you feel that they need to be educated. You're never going to achieve this by berating them. This is never going to happen. It's just straight up never going to happen. This is why, I usually try to engage people in good faith as much as I possibly can.
Yeah. I think there generally should just be developers specifically need to realize that the gamers that they're talking to, most are adults, and they should treat them as adults, not just as punching bags. But the sad part of this is while I wish the gamers could act like adults and not just attack willy-nilly for no reason whatsoever, the thing is, the gamers, the responsibility here isn't on the gamers, right? Because most of them, it's just too many people, right? There's millions of gamers. Some are just going to be, like you say, the bad apples, right?
But I think you can't just excuse that.
The thing is,
it's like, I think that everybody should be responsible for what they put on.
I think there's a difference, right? So I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying that war. So the war to try and get gamers to respond correctly to things that they don't like is a war that you will never win. Right? You'll never win it. Because
listen, we were forged in the fires of forum wars, okay? A lot of us back in the World of Warcraft forums, I need you guys to understand, I was permanently banned from the World of Warcraft forums on 3 different occasions in the same account, okay? Permanently banned. And I'm still not banned today. So it's like, listen, we are absolute wordsmiths, okay?
Yeah.
In all the goods and all the bad ways.
Yeah, but you see, that's the problem, right? You're dealing with so many millions of people that war is a war that you can try and fight. You're fighting it in vain. You're never winning it. But developers have a responsibility to act professionally.
They're held to a higher standard, yes.
Yeah, you are the developer. It's the same way that YouTubers are held to a much higher standard than just normal gamers. Because when you choose to become a YouTuber, you have to become a voice of reason within the specific genre or space that you're going to make videos in. Now, of course, some don't and don't give a crap about that, and there is a market for that as well. But you are held to a higher standard, because you decided to put yourself in that position. No one forced you. You said, let me turn on my camera, let me turn on my mic, and let me make videos about this. So you have to accept. Look, every video I make, I have people absolutely disagreeing with something that I say. And I can't start yelling and screaming at these people because how dare you, question my authority. I decided to say the thing. Someone disagreed. I either just ignore the disagreement and go on if I don't feel like there's any real value in that disagreement, or I accept, yes, okay, I sort of spoke out of turn here, or I spoke a little bit too quickly, or I should maybe have used different words, or I engage in thoughtful, hopefully useful debate where I make my case for why I said the thing that I said, and the other person is allowed to retort and to respond and whatnot. But I'm held to a much higher standard than the people in my comment section. Because the people in my comment section did not sign up for this. They don't have to be professional. Yep. They're just watching the video at the end of the day, or
they're
just
customers.
Playing the game. Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's an audience, but they are our customers for all intents and purposes.
Yeah,
and we are making videos is like making a product. Now, it's a little bit different in the fact that, a lot of people can just make products without any passion whatsoever, and to make videos about gaming specifically, you need to have some passion about your subject matter. Otherwise, it's not going to be as interesting. But at the end of the day, a video is supposed to be kind of like a product, and there is a consumer for that product, and it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. As for the next topic that we have, Rurikhan, still sticking in the realms of the industry kind of burning down, we're talking Warner Brothers.
Okay.
Warner Brothers.
Talk to me.
Okay, so Warner Brothers just announced, and I want to get this right because it's crazy. So Warner Brothers just announced that they're closing down Monolith Productions, Player First Games, and Warner Brothers Games San Diego. are all being shut down.
Jesus.
Yeah, this story was first brokered by Jason Schreier.
What does Monolith Productions work on, I wonder? Because like everything comes out under WB, so we don't actually know. Ooh. Okay.
A lot of these, one of these studios, for example, is linked to Shadows of Mordor, Fear, all of these sort of super big IPs.
Wait, it just redirects to Warner Bros. Games, so we don't actually know. I was trying to look for Monolith Productions, but it just redirects to the stuff. Okay, yeah, we got Bloodclaw, Get Medieval, Alien vs. Predator 2, Fear 2, Guardians of Middle-earth, Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, Middle-earth, Shadow of War. Oh, yeah, this is Monolith. These are the guys who did Shadow of War.
Yeah.
Guess why Shadow of War wasn't successful?
Why?
Because it was a single-player game with orc loot boxes.
Oh, yeah. I remember that, actually. But it had one of the systems that...
You can get good orcs from these loot boxes. You literally had loot boxes of orcs. It's like, bro, what are you doing? And the worst part is, once they canceled those loot boxes, a bunch of people went back and they were like, oh my God, this game's actually amazing. And it's like, yeah, it was, because I played Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of Mordor was an amazing game. It was like, imagine the combat system of like the Batman Arkham series, except you're a badass in fucking Mordor beating down orcs. It had the Nemesis system, for crying out loud. Yeah. You know about the Nemesis system, right? Did you ever play the game?
I do. Yeah, I've played it. The Nemesis system is patented, by the way. It is the system. So many games.
These fucking guys patented. Like, let me just tell you this, because this was so good, bro. There was I had this story with this one fucking goblin that wouldn't speak. He didn't know how to speak. So every time we'd go into confrontation, there's a little cinematic that plays when you clash with them for the first time, which is really well done, by the way, because you'd be like midway through the combat and then you reach the actual nemesis, bro. And it's like you start an attack and it zooms in to you and the other character. And then there's like kind of a face-off moment.
Oh, yeah.
And this goblin was going like, just like fucking, that's all the sound he made. And it was hilarious because I would beat his ass and then he would run away and he would escape. And so the first time he shows up and he's just like a regular looking goblin. And then the second time I confront this goblin, he shows up, he's got like a bunch of scars from our previous fight. Then the fourth time I shows up, he's got like metal plates in his face because I carved them up. And then the fourth time, he's just like all busted up, but he's still there. It's like, just like making crazy sounds. And oh my God, this is so good. Yeah. I loved it. Like, it was fantastic. And then they came out with Shadow of War, and I was like, bro, what are you guys? This is disgusting. What you are doing is actually fucking vile with these loot boxes. And that's why the game wasn't successful. And they also had something, they did like some really shady shit around the embargo of their game, which some YouTubers were just like, no, fuck this shit. The embargo required them to not speak poorly about the game. They couldn't criticize the game if they accepted the embargo. And I was like, shit. The reason why that was so bad at the time, because I was like, man, people are going to think that everybody does this, which they don't, because I had seen a bunch of embargoes by then. And I was like, very rarely do you even see this type of shit. So I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, I mean,
they did some really shady shit with that. And then eventually when they removed the loot boxes, the game was actually awesome. But that studio is closing down.
So Warner Brothers is closing all of these studios, which you could probably make the argument. We'll get to what this might mean, because this isn't the only studios that's laying people off. But according to Warner Brothers, now I think the real answer here lies in what they say. The quality of too many of our new releases has really missed the mark. JB Parate, head of games and streaming for Warner Brothers, wrote in a memo. We need to make some substantial changes to our portfolio team structure if we are to commit the necessary resources to get back to a fewer but bigger franchises strategy. So rather than trying to make, a game every single year, they want to get back to making, the next Hogwarts Legacy. Something that took a long time to make, but when it comes out, it really stands out. and it really blows everyone's minds. And actually, I would say Hogwarts Legacy should, at some point, someone should make one of those retrospectives on that game. It's very interesting how you get a game that does not advance any feature of the open world sort of RPG adventure. Nothing about Hogwarts Legacy is special. I want to make that super clear. It doesn't do anything particularly uniquely advancing, but it works because it does everything well enough. The open world, well enough. The exploration, well enough. The puzzles, well enough.
I particularly liked. I didn't play the game, by the way, but I thought it was hilarious that Hogwarts, teenage students were just going around abracadabra. It's just like butchering other people. It's just like, oh, you messed with the you would have ended the story of Harry Potter way sooner to be like Draco Malfoy steps out of line, abracadabra.
Yeah,
it's over.
But it didn't do anything new, because usually games that break out are games that do something unique, something that has never been seen before. And I would say something like Elden Ring, for example, Elden Ring is a very good example of a game that took open world to a whole new level.
Oh yeah, to something they made it their own.
Yeah, we've never seen anything like that in the gaming industry, quite to that level, and that's very much part of the reason why that game became a cultural success. But then, oftentimes you think this is what a game needs, which is often not true, because you have so many games that, in the same sort of way, don't do anything necessarily uniquely different. It's not like the Nemesis system, which is a unique feature. They just do it well enough, and that's all that's required. So I think this is what Warner Brothers really is trying to harken back to. And I will be honest, speaking to some people in the industry, one of the key problems that the industry has is just the existence of too many studios. And all of these studios have to be managed by the main studio. So Warner Brothers have to manage all of these different studios. And the problem is just scope. It's too much to manage. So a lot of these studios either don't get the funding required or the support required, because they're trying to juggle too many things at the same time. So I do think this is, and for those of you that don't, we have seen layoffs now across the board in the industry in almost every single major AAA developer. And just in the last year, we've seen massive layoffs. I mean, end of last year, I covered in a video, 26% of the developers in the gaming industry in Europe have been gutted already by layoffs. 26%. I think this year is going to see another 20-odd% developers laid off in the industry, as studios are starting to realize the answer was never more developers, more better. It's the quality of the developers that you have that makes a successful game. Just having 400 developers working on your game means nothing if those developers are Veilguard developers, right? If you have a bunch of writers that think Tasha's storyline is good, it doesn't matter if you have 400 writers. They're not writing a good script. No matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, they'll write a lot of words, right? They'll write a big script, but it won't be a good script. Oftentimes, smaller is better. I was reminded of this, the studio Rebel Wolves?
Yes.
They're now 2 years into production.
And for people that don't know who Rebel Wolves is, it is a studio that splintered off from CD Projekt Red.
Yeah.
They worked on Witcher 3, just for context. Keep going.
Yeah,
sorry.
They're making a new vampire Witcher 3, basically. Like, when you listen to the music,
which looks awesome.
Yeah, it looks insanely cool. But when you listen to the music, you look at the sort of aesthetic, it's very much Witcher 3 vibes that you're getting from it. But that studio is now 2 years into production. Now, for those of you that might not understand game development, you usually have like a year of what is referred to as pre-production. This is where you have very few people working on the game, 5, 6 people maybe, because they're figuring out the scope. What is this game actually going to be? then you usually have like a massive ramp up where you're starting to get more developers in, because now you need to actually build the scope that you laid out, what you want to actually make. Usually by the 2-year mark, a studio reaches what you could call maximum capacity. Most of the developers that are now there are the ones that's going to be finishing and making this game. 2 years into this game, the studio has 90 people working for it, which makes it one of the smallest AAA developed games. I don't even know if they necessarily call themselves AAA, but definitely the cinematic made it look like it's on the level of AAA at least. 90 people is very small, but I think they figured out what we're now seeing in the gaming industry, and that is that more people didn't automatically transfer to better games faster. If anything, it just slowed things down. It made things go longer. It made it more difficult to operate. So that's why
it makes them less agile.
Yeah,
basically.
It makes it very difficult to move to where you want to go. And I think people need to gear up. This isn't the only time. Now, for those of you that might be saying, well, finally the Nemesis system is free. No, it's not. Warner Brothers have retained...
No, they will keep that, in their little hoard of treasures. Yeah.
The patent only falls at 2036.
I mean, Nintendo also has the patent for storing monsters inside a ball. Or is it the throwing one? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's a patent for you throw a ball and a monster comes out of it. And Nintendo has that for Pokemon. And you're just like, really? Did we really need to patent that? Come on now.
I'm going to be real. I don't mind the fact that it's patented. But I almost want to say, if you're going to patent something, you should also be forced to license it so that other people can pay for the license to actually use the system. Because there are so many games.
They can just make it prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, they could. But I don't think they would. Because this is another revenue stream that's just sort of passive. You think about the amount of games that could 100% benefit from the Nemesis system. But now, if you guys don't understand, you can't even begin to try to do stuff because the entire Nemesis system is patented. So if you make a system where the enemy escapes and then comes back a little bit stronger, a little bit different, bam, Nemesis system, they own that shit. You can't use that in your game. So
I feel like we need to just get together and be like, no, you don't get to fucking do that. You don't get to patent that. Okay?
Yeah.
Just because you had a cool idea for a video game once doesn't mean that nobody else gets to do it. That's absolutely ridiculous. It's the same thing of imagine the first person to ever make a podcast on YouTube is like, yep, we're licensing podcasts. Like the fucking, what was their name? The Fine Bros or whatever it was.
Yeah.
The guys who did Reaction. They're like, no. We're the only ones who can steal content from other people and react to it. We're coining the term reaction. Fuck off. Okay?
Yeah. No,
That's how that happened on YouTube, okay? You don't get to just fucking coin something. The fuck do you mean?
No, but
that's ridiculous.
I absolutely agree with you. I think in a perfect world, the problem with patents is very often it kills creativity. Because
absolutely.
rather than, yes, you made this really cool thing, and now other people are using this really cool thing, and you need to innovate again to make your cool thing even cooler the next time around, you now just sit on this thing. And what's even more disgusting is, outside of the Nemesis system being used in Shadow of Mordor, I don't think they've ever used the Nemesis system again. They just had it in those two games, and now they're just not even doing it in any of their other games.
They're just hoarding it like a dragon's treasure. That's what they're doing. It's like, oh yeah, we have the Nemesis system, and you can't have it. It's like,
and it's just
bro.
You're killing, dude. Imagine Elden Ring New Game Plus with a Nemesis system built into it.
No, but I want you to think about something else, okay?
Yeah.
Think about this. Somebody at that studio, that is now being closed, by the way, came up with this idea.
Yeah.
Like somebody, I don't know who it was, but somebody was like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if we just do this? And then some fucking low-life piece of trash, disgusting human being that's like a sniveling fucking goblin, like a fat one, like, you know, the Goblin King in the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Somebody that looks like that, but in a suit, right? It's that, but in a suit.
Yeah.
Comes down and is like, yes.
This is mine now.
The Nemesis system. This is a good idea.
Yeah.
Let me get the legal team on the phone. In the meantime, John, the only creative person they have in that fucking studio, right? Is him like, oh man, this will be so cool. Let me draw this up. And the goblin's just like sitting over his shoulder, like fucking drooling, like, oh yes. More detail. Good job, John. Good. Little pat on the back is as much as fucking John got. Didn't even get a bonus to his fucking salary. These fucking people have no shame, bro.
Yeah.
God, it irritates me so much, dude.
It is super disgusting, but also at the same time, I'm not hating the rebrands. Look, it is sad when good developers lose their jobs, but I also think, I mean, we've had this conversation before, so I won't rehash it too much, but I genuinely do believe that AAA studios are going the way of the dodo bird. I don't think that AAA studios will exist in the form that they are now within the next decade, because I think the gaming landscape is changing, and because games are being democratized so much more, gaming tools is being democratized so much more, there's no real reason for a AAA studio to still exist. You're saying, like, I don't think that AAA studios will exist like this, and I'm just thinking to myself, I don't think Ubisoft's going to exist at all. Yeah. Ubisoft will be gutted, right? Ubisoft won't exist anymore, but you think about the landscape.
Okay, listen,
stuff,
I need
the
audience.
Yeah.
Listen, I need our audience right now to shed a tear and play the smallest violin in the world for the Ubisoft monetization director. Okay, won't you think about the monetization director?
The sad
Remember his
life.
crash out on Facebook, writes out a fucking essay about how terrible his life is.
Yeah.
The monetization director.
I remember
and
that.
I'm just like, bro, it's you.
Yeah,
it's because of you.
You're the reason.
The company is dying because of you. You idiot.
But I genuinely just think there is no real AAA space left. The day of 400 developers working on a video game is going to become increasingly rare because it's just not a justifiable expense anymore. And yeah, I think that's a good thing. So I'm looking forward to what Warner Brothers has in store in the next few games that they come out with. Can they actually turn this around? It's all going to depend on the quality of the developers that's still left.
They got a Suicide Squad expansion in the bank. Just you wait.
Oh,
it's coming down the pike. That Suicide Squad expansion, bro.
Oh, man.
Just you wait.
You see, I sort of think, especially with Ubisoft's layoffs now with this, and actually, let's just quickly cover the next story here, and then we can get into what this actually means. We're talking, of course, about Wizards of the Coast right now.
Oh, no.
And Wizards of the Coast also just announced the cancellation of Skeleton Key Games' new unannounced game. Now,
wait, the new unannounced game?
Yeah. There's an unannounced game from Skeleton Key that no one knew about, but we knew that it was being developed. We knew that there was some game being developed. For those
Is this
of you,
the one that Corinne Bush was supposed to be working on?
No. Okay, so you have a developer. Let me just sort of quickly get the article out here. You have a developer, Christian Daly. In 2022, Christian Daly worked at BioWare. He was the game director for Dragon Age: The Veilguard for like a super short period of time. Actually, he was the executive producer. So here's how it goes.
Yeah,
this is according to the article.
For the Veilguard?
Yeah.
Or for
no. Here's
so Dreadwolf at the time though.
Sort of. Dreadwolf.
Okay.
But I'll quickly give you the full article or just the quote here. In 2022, former BioWare veteran Christian Daly joined Skeleton Key as its vice president and head of studio. He was best known for working on the Dragon Age franchise. He became executive producer for Dragon Age The Veilguard after McDara left BioWare in 2020, but then handed off the role to Gary McKay after leaving to join Skeleton Key. So he was about 2 years he spent as the executive producer for Dragon Age The Veilguard. And then he left to join Skeleton Key. At this time, he left because Skeleton Key was starting work on a brand new game that they wanted him to be a part of. And now that game has been cancelled. And it sort of immediately also followed with a bunch of people being laid off. Actually, before we end this, I want you to just quickly listen to this little gem from one of the developers that worked at Monolith Productions. Sorry, we're sort of doubling back to the previous story, but I forgot. Sure. So this, after the news broke that Warner Brothers had canceled these studios and had laid off a bunch of developers, you have Cypher to be found elsewhere on Twitter or X. Releasing now, Cypher is one of the developers that worked at the studio that says, yes, the news is true. I'm a free agent and open to opportunities. Almost 2 years pouring my heart and soul into the Wonder Woman game. Oh, the Wonder Woman game was also cancelled. Just FYI. I effing refuse to share that Ghoul's article, and do not send it to me if you value not being verbally flayed to the bone. I think that he or she is referring to Jason Schreier because he's the one that broke the news. I'm not sure why Jason Schreier is being called a ghoul. But, you know, I'm thinking that's what they're referring to because he broke the story.
I know why.
Okay.
I know why. Listen, why? Jason, I warned you about this. You defended the microtransactions of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And now it's finally coming back to bite you in the ass, Jason. I told you those microtransactions were not okay. And somebody's finally calling. No, I'm making that up.
Yeah. But okay, Cypher goes on, of course, to showcase just how much Cypher loves gamers in general by saying, any of you mother effers say an effing word about us deserving it, I will come for you. Do not try with me or any of my colleagues. I'm logging off for a bit and try to process this news. What do you mean you don't deserve it? I mean, what's the last good games you guys have made?
I mean, Skeleton Key? Because he's talking about Skeleton Key, right?
Yeah, this Cypher person is talking about Monolith Studios or Monolith Productions.
Oh.
You know, and you look at these studios like Monolith Productions, all of the games you read off there are older games. They're not even games that came out in the last 5 years, right? So the whole thing and Wonder Woman game was stuck in development hell. It was consistently being rebooted, restarted. They couldn't figure out what they wanted to do, and finally, Warner Brothers just moved in there and said, "Okay, wait, enough. This isn't working. This isn't working. We're shutting it down." Now they're saying we don't deserve to be laid off. Bitch, you couldn't launch a game. Like, what are you talking about? You don't deserve it. Every other person that has a job, if they're not doing said job, gets laid off. You know, that's just how it works. You don't get to work just because you exist. You have to actually earn your keep. So, you know, it's sort of just this funny little thing about Monolith.
After this Twitter post that you just mentioned, I'm not saying anything. And you better watch your back, Akalon. That guy's coming to South Africa. He's coming for you.
Yeah, he's welcome.
He said he's coming for you, bro.
We have guns, Cypher, so let's have fun with this. Let's have our fun. But okay, back to the Wizards of the Coast story, which, you know, we're on now.
Yeah.
So the Wizards of the Coast story is very much in the same vein as this. The game that they were working on apparently stuck in development hell. Not really getting anywhere, can't figure out how to move forward. And again, I would just like to point out, to show you the quality of the developers that work at Skeleton Key. Corinne Bush, after he destroys a beloved franchise at BioWare, is immediately hired by Skeleton Key as the next big thing. There is no better definition of failing upward than that. Like, your resume Your entire resume is Sims going straight into Dragon Age the Veilguard and ruining it. And then another studio comes, well, that is the kind of spirit we want at our studios.
I wouldn't necessarily say that she's failing upward, because I wouldn't necessarily say that Skeleton Key is more prestigious studio than BioWare.
Well, the problem is Wizards of the Coast is a hell of a lot bigger than BioWare, right? Like Wizards of the Coast.
I mean, but not in the gaming industry. I feel like Wizards of the Coast is about cards and tabletop games. They're Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah,
and
but you want to talk about a studio that has money to burn. It's Wizards of the Coast. Like those guys make.
I mean. Yeah, they definitely got a ton of money out of me when I was a teenager buying stupid Magic cards. I wish I had never gotten into that.
I mean, they print money effectively. So as a studio, the amount, it's okay. So even not the fighting upwards thing, it's just wild to me. Like it's the equivalent of you working in a braid making factory, and because of your own ineptitude and complete lack of skill, you blew it up. And then immediately Amazon contacts you and says, hey, want to come work at our factory? You seem like the kind of, go get him attitude we want around these parts. It's like, what are you talking about? How are you getting a job in the gaming industry after the failures of Veilguard? How is this even working? So I think looking at that accusation from Skeleton Keys gives me a good idea of the kinds of developers that they have working there. Clearly, Corin Bush fits the political attitudes that Wizards of the Coast have. And for those of you that don't understand how this connects to politics, just go look at the last few years of D&D. This is the company that brought you Black Aragon because they wanted to be inclusive and they wanted to be diverse. And they made Aragon.
I'm more concerned with the fact that I'm equally concerned with the fact that for Dungeons and Dragons, didn't they remove half orcs or whatever the hell it was? Because it's like, it's strange. There was something about that I remember.
They did a bunch of things for racist reasons because it's racist if it's there, but then also removed the alignment system because that's also considered wrong. People shouldn't be classed as like evil and not evil, and
really?
Well,
you can no longer be like lawful good and chaotic evil and shit like that.
You can, but it's just aesthetic. It no longer impacts your game in any way, shape, or form. Like it used to be in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. If you were lawful evil or chaotic evil, some party members would just not work with you.
I swear that these people do not have the concept of what roleplay fucking is.
Yeah, but remember, they have to be inclusive, bro. Like you can't judge them for that. Everything has to be included. Even the Austrian painter should be included.
Let me just tell you something, okay?
Yeah.
And I will never back down from this. When I role play as a dwarf, my dwarf hates orcs and goblins. Okay, absolutely.
I hate them just in general.
Okay.
So I agree with that.
I do not care. I do not care. This is a role-playing game. It's a fantasy video game, okay? That's just the way that I role-play dwarves. And if people have a problem with that, that's too fucking bad.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But no, I mean, Christ. This is a studio that has very openly, I mean, one of the creators of Wizards of the Coast were going on and on about how there's too many white men in the ecosystem of Wizards of the Coast. Too many white men play their games, and it's time for black people and people of color to take over the industry and let the white people leave. So this is a studio that has been marred in politics. So you can imagine that the people that currently work at Skeleton Key are also hyper-political activists, right? Corin Bush leading the charge and all of that. So to see them also now closing down a game and laying off a bunch of developers, all of this basically plays into a very interesting time that we find ourselves in. Remember, I told you that we're going to be talking about at least how I think it relates to it, and then Rurikhan can give his opinion on how he thinks all of this relates to the gaming industry. But from my perspective, I see a shift in the cultural zeitgeist. There's a cultural shift that's happening. Uh, as the elections in America concluded, and I think the world has sort of woken up to the fact that these progressive politics aren't just de facto accepted by everyone, right? So for a long time, the belief in the gaming industry, or at least in the arts, was that everyone just loves progressive politics. Everyone is super progressive, inclusive, and everyone just likes the stuff that we do. I think that moment following the elections and seeing the backlash of obviously Gamergate 2.0 and seeing how games are failing as a result of their completely lopsided focus. Because I don't want to be one of those guys, and I am not one of those guys that say no diversity in my video games, no inclusion in my video games. I'm not one of those people. I'm one of those people that care about where is your focus. Is your focus on making a good game that also happen to be diverse and inclusive? Or is your focus on being diverse and inclusive and maybe you happen to make a good game as a result of all of that? Because the one I completely reject. If your focus is just on being diverse and inclusive, I reject that. Your first job is to make a good game. And if your game happens to not include black people because it takes place in Norway during the Viking era, then cool, right? There can be no black people in your game because it's Norway during the Viking era. And if your game takes place in Africa, then I don't expect to see blonde people running around in the 1300s in Africa, right? Because why the hell would they be there in the first place? So if you happen to make a game that doesn't include anyone or isn't diverse, but it's still a fun game, I'll play it. If you happen to make a game that includes everyone, and it is super diverse, and it is a fun game, then I will play it. I just want fun games. And I think the industry is realizing this is where gamers are. The overwhelming majority of gamers are there.
Here's what I think.
Yeah.
When it comes to this, you're talking about a cultural zeitgeist that involves like all the politics stuff, and these are all things that I don't tend to pay too much attention to. But one of the things that I will say is, I think you should be very wary of studios that all of a sudden they're like, actually, guys, we're not woke. We promise. Guys, hey, listen. We're based as fuck.
Yeah.
Okay? I think you should be very wary of studios like that because they were waiting for like some type of a sign that is like, oh, it's okay to not be woke now. They don't really stand on their, whatever beliefs that they happen to have or not. I think pay attention to the studios that are just gonna keep making cool ass video games, and that's it. Okay, that's the way that I look at it. I'm like, hey, listen, if you're a studio that was doing cool games before and you're still doing cool games now, cool. If you're a studio that is like swinging whatever the wind is facing, then I'm going to be like a little bit, I don't know about that. It's like, that's kind of weird. So that's just the way that I look at it, and that is regardless of wokeness and whatever.
I fully agree with you, but I also think that there are studios out there that were sort of dragged into this culture war, right? They sort of found themselves in this position where they had to make these inclusive games because all of their marketing departments were telling them, this is the future, this is what everyone wants. All of the consultants were telling them, this is the future, this is what everyone wants. And they were afraid to actually speak up, to actually say, look, but we just want to make games, bro. Like, we don't give a shit about any of this political stuff. I've actually spoken to someone that is in the gaming industry that said exactly this. Their studio just recently sent out a memo telling everyone that they're out of the political business, and the developers there actually celebrated this. They were like, man, finally. Because they don't care about any of this. Most of those developers just want to make games. They don't give a shit about any of the political shit that needs to be included. And oftentimes it comes straight from the marketing departments. The marketing departments tell them, you have to have this many people from this color, this many people from this color, this many people from this group. All of this has to be in the game. And then they're bending over backwards to try and put these people into their game, whether it makes sense or not, because you have to do what marketing says, because marketing is oftentimes the most powerful department in any studio. So a lot of developers are celebrating the fact that, and it's not because these developers are sort of Trump voting Republicans. Most of them wouldn't vote for Trump. In fact, the guy I spoke to thinks Trump is an asshole. He hates Trump. But he also hates being a political teacher because he says, I got into gaming to make games, not to be an educator, not to be a teacher, not to preach to anyone. I just want to make games. So I'll read to you what Marek Tominsky had to say about it. Now, you should know Marek. Do you? Or you know about him at least. He's the CEO of CI Games Official. CI Games are the guys behind Lords of the Fallen.
Oh, is this the guy that was doing the whole thing about type 1, type 2, and female or whatever?
Yeah, they're basically one of the first big, well, I say big, Lords of the Fallen is sort of like a Souls-esque studio. They made, or a Souls-esque
I know what
game.
Lords of the Fallen is.
Yeah, I know you know what it is.
I worked closely with them on launch.
Yeah. So Marek,
I was like, your game's exploding on AMD GPUs. Help!
yeah. They've apparently done a lot to sort of fix the game. In the interim.
They fixed it up.
It's apparently it's a very fun game. From what I've heard, people say it's a really good game.
I've played hundreds of hours. Their co-op is what should be the standard for Souls-likes going forward, in my opinion.
Nice. But so he had the following to say. This was yesterday on Twitter or on X. He said, in my view, both NetEase and Warner are closing studios. Not due to cash flow issues. Both are very big and well-capitalized companies. But because they no longer believe these studios can provide enough value. This is a very strong signal that large industry players are shifting focus towards the most efficient and high-potential operations, and additionally, a more lean structure. Even if that means fewer products being developed at a given time, it's easy to see how larger development studios over time can become inefficient, leading to a loss of confidence from investors or the board. It's a tough but strategic decision, essential for maintaining competitiveness and focusing on creative, exceptional games that have the potential for significant commercial success. I can clearly see how DEI and social political agendas have had a major impact on all of this, but each studio's case is different. So he's basically saying it's less about DEI and sort of wokeness and more about just being more competitive in the gaming space. But of course, as I've already alluded to, I see these things as not mutually exclusive. If you want to be more competitive, you can't care about DEI. That just can't come into your hiring practices. You hire the best people for the job. If they happen to be black, great. If they happen to not be black, great. Who gives a shit? This is the best person that you can hire for the job, and that's the guy that gets the job. Because we want good video games back. And I do think that, we'll wait and see, right? Because I do agree with you. I think there might be a lot of studios out there that might start to say the right things in the hopes of getting in the good book of the chuds, right? Riding on the coattails of the chud movement, as they call us, right?
Like, it's just a lot of companies have absolutely no morals. Like, this is why I criticize the crap out of Ubisoft, because they were, we're changing Assassin's Creed Shadows. You're going to get everything rather than us, nickel and diming you. And it's like, yeah, you did this after people fucking shredded you over Star Wars Outlaws, after people didn't buy your game, after you actually felt the change in your fucking wallets.
Yeah.
That's when you did this. Don't fucking lie and sit here and posture like, we've always wanted to be a more user-friendly corporation. It's like, no, you're full of shit. It's like we hit you in the wallet where it fucking hurts, and you guys are reeling. Reeling. Because you're not railing, you're getting railed. It's different.
But I agree with you. I think oftentimes, gamers celebrate things way too early. I'm calling it a possible cultural shift, but I'm keeping my eyes open, right? So I know what I'm looking for now. And if I see more moves like this, then it either confirms or denies it, right? It all depends. But even then, and I know that a lot of you watching this come from Rurikhan's channel, so you don't really give a shit about the politics, but also know a lot of you come from my channel, so you do care about the politics. I will say the following. and that is that do not expect gaming to change within the next, I would say, 3 to 4 years. The studios that are super woke have games in the pipeline that still needs to come out, right? And that means that there's still going to be quite a few Star Wars Outlaws releasing. There's still going to be, I mean, Ubisoft is literally releasing AC Shadows just next month, right? So there's still going to be a bunch of really crappy games coming out because a lot of these games, I think, is beyond saving at this point. I will say, though, and this is a sort of complete aside, did you play Solasta 2?
No, I did not play Solasta 2.
Dude, what a fun game. It's very much like, it's very much like Baldur's Gate 3. But so fun. We can maybe talk about that after, before we talk about the Monster Hunter stuff, because I know you have some Monster Hunter stuff for us. But it is such a fun game. No pronouns, no wokeness. Just, yes, there's diversity. Everyone looks different, but so fun. Just such a fun experience. Very similar.
What are the classes for dwarves? What can dwarves play as?
You can literally, in the demo, the character that you play is a dwarven warrior with a sword and a shield.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
You can
good
play.
Animations, good.
Very cool.
It's turn-based, right?
Yeah. The combat is turn-based.
Yeah.
The movement, we'll talk about it in a second, because I just remembered I played the demo and it was super fun. But okay, so let's quickly talk about pre-alpha footage for Fable has launched.
So wait, before we go there, there's one more thing, which was we're talking about how there's all these people firing getting rid of studios and whatnot. We haven't talked about the NetEase situation that I just wanted to bring up real briefly. Okay. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because if you remember, when you were telling me in the podcast that like, oh man, Marvel Rivals is popping off, and obviously I was seeing it in the media as well, my thought process was, it's like, listen, this was back then, because then I even forgot about who was working on Marvel Rivals.
Yeah.
But it's like, my thought process was, this is the company that worked on Diablo Immortal. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for them to just show their hand and completely fuck you over, finger you in the asshole, and just extract as much money as possible from you. The NetEase pulled a different one. They were like, not sure if we're going to be able to fleece these gamers just as much as we'd like on Marvel Rivals. Yeah. So instead, we'll just get rid of the whole fucking studio, the support studio, like we said. But on top of that, they got rid of a bunch of other studios. They did massive cutbacks on studios like Untold Worlds, Jar of Sparks, Humanoid Origin, Liquid Swords, Suda51's Grasshopper Manufacturer, Nagoshi Studio, Quantic Dream. Mm-hmm. They're among a dozen studios that are facing potential closure if they cannot secure post-NetEase funding. So they're just like, you know what? Fuck all these other studios. Fuck them. You cannot. I've said it from the beginning. You cannot trust NetEase. You cannot trust these people. If you get in bed with NetEase, you better be ready for something like that. Yeah. Okay? They're gonna cut you off at the minimum. Like the minimal thing, they're just like, yep, fuck you, die, make us money or die. Like that's it. There's no tolerance whatsoever. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I would also say I think NetEase has woken up to the fact that this is according to at least insider sources. So you have to take this with, and not my insider sources. This is from Grums that shared this. So take all of this with a massive grain of salt. I know Rurikhan has these questions about Grums and what Grums does. It's
not about Grums. I have my questions about anything that I can't confirm from either side. If there's not an actual straight up confirmation, I'm always like, okay, I'll listen to it, but I don't know.
Yeah, but from what I've heard, or at least what Grums shared, NetEase is sick and tired of what they call at least the laziness of Western developers. Things are slow. The developers are super lazy. There doesn't appear to be much passion from a lot of the studios that NetEase sort of acquired. And that's why NetEase is closing all of these studios. That's why NetEase is completely distancing themselves from the gaming industry in the West.
This is what NetEase is saying, right?
This is according to insiders at NetEase, right? So people who are at NetEase that spoke to Grums and said, this is why a lot of these studios are being closed down. And to some extent, I can logically agree with it. Even though I can't confirm the sources and I don't just believe the sources, there is a logical part of me that suggests a lot of developers don't have passion in the gaming industry. They're just there to pull a check, especially some of the newer developers. And the problem in the West is a lot of our AAA studios are basically mostly just brand new developers coming from university, trained as activists and the like. So that's part number one. Lazy is also one that I myself have found. There's sort of like this. So how do I put this? I'm not against work-life balance. I'm not against the concept of it. I do think there should be balance between work and life. I don't think they are the same. But I do think that, especially in the Western world, there's been sort of like an overcompensation to where work-life balance has now almost become a thing of you need to have equal off time as you have work time, which for all of human history has never been the case. For all of human history, people have worked way more than what they sat around doing nothing. You know, I live in Cape Town, and in Cape Town, one of the sort of key complaints from people that come from the north of South Africa is that the Cape Townians are lazy. And the reason we have this sort of complaint is you phone your electrician, you have an electrical fault at your house that maybe trips the power all the time. You phone them at 3 o'clock, they're not arriving that day. 3 o'clock, they're on their way to the beach to go surfing. They'll be back the next day, maybe even the day after that. You phone your plumber with a problem, dude, work-life balance. You know, I can't be working late into the night. I used to own a plumbing company back in the north. I would get phoned 12 o'clock at night. I'm asleep. I get phoned. I get woken up on my phone. Some guy has a leak somewhere. I have to drag my ass out of bed. I have to go fix the leak in the middle of the night. And guess what? The next morning, I can't lie in. I can't just go sleepy because I was awake all night. I have to be right at work 6 o'clock the next morning. So sometimes you don't even sleep because work. You know, what are you supposed to do?
Do you think that's a good thing?
I think it's life. You just have to do that, right? Because it doesn't happen every day, but it does happen.
Here's where I'm at. The problem specifically when it comes to the gaming industry and why so many people are, and again, I'm talking specifically about the gaming industry. I don't want people to take this out of context like, oh, well, what about this other person? Yeah, like, guess what? I've had plenty of situations where I myself would be like, okay, I'm staying all night in here because I work IT. Guess when's the best way to do best time to do maintenance on computers? It's when people aren't working on them, which is after work hours. So plenty of times I stayed super late. Now, in my case, I didn't do what you did, which is like, oh yeah, next day I'm here. I'd be to my boss, listen, I'm staying here all night. I'm not coming in tomorrow. You guys sort yourselves out. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be the way that I would do it. Sometimes I wouldn't be able to pull that off because something else needed to get done the next day, and I'd be like, fine, okay, whatever. But usually I try to get away with like at least no morning so that I could chill out a little bit and figure stuff out. Mm-hmm. But the idea is, when it comes to the gaming industry specifically, is that people have been burning the candle on both ends for decades now. And there's just a lot of people that just don't have that much, you know, what do you call the thing in the middle of the candle? The string. They don't have that much string. The wick. Yeah. They don't have that much wick left. Mm-hmm. And so if they don't get that work-life balance going in, they're going to crash out, which we've seen multiple developers crash out because they just spend all their time working on video games. So it's like, I understand why they're trying to get better work-life balance. And then there's also the situation with commute, which for a lot of people is a lot of time. Like if you are commuting to the office every single day, like in my case, for a while, I was losing like 3 to 4 hours every single day just in commutes, which is just like absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, if somebody tells me like, oh yeah, 2 hours to get to work, 2 hours to come back, I'm like, yeah, that's fucked. That's fucked. That's just that simple.
Yeah.
So it's like, I understand where people are coming from, but at the same time, there are certain, you can't just be like, oh yeah, it's all chilling out. I don't want to be doing as much work as before, but there does need to be a little bit of a balance.
Yeah, but you see,
so that's why I'm telling you, that's why people are fighting for that, I would imagine. It's because of the amount of burnout that we have in this industry.
My issue is we have article after article. This was a few years ago. It's sort of calmed down now. But a month before the launch of your new game, you have developers complaining of burnout because they're asked to work overtime now. Now, I get that in those stories, you would oftentimes hear really screwed up things. Of like one guy at Blizzard, his wife went into labor and he was told that he can't be at the hospital because he has to work. That is screwed up, right? Medical emergencies should exempt you from that stuff. But if you're just sort of, most of your time, you're working a normal 9-to-5 job, but then a month before launch, it gets crazy, right? And developers have been doing this for decades because they were passionate about their games. So a month before launch, yes, you're going to be working 16, 17, 18 hours a day because you're rushing to try and get everything ready for the big launch, but you're passionate about the game that you're launching, and so it's a worthwhile thing. Versus nowadays, it almost seems like, no, I will never work overtime. I just want to chill out, and I just want to relax. So I can very easily see this as a real problem. I'll give you, this isn't related to specifically game development, but I'll give you an example of the Western mindset and why I think studios or companies like NetEase might be looking at this mindset and just be completely baffled as to, and call it lazy. I'm an avid follower of League of Legends, right? It is my sport. It's what I watch, the League of Legends esports. My favorite team is Fnatic. They're a European organization, but I know a lot about the American organizations and the European organizations. Now, obviously, the rulers of League of Legends are the Asians, specifically the South Koreans and the Chinese teams. They basically rule. They win every single competition. Europe and America is never even really in contention for those victories. And one of the key reasons for it is work-life balance. The European teams will scrum for about 5 or 6 games a day. Then, only about 3 or 4 days a week. They don't want to scrum before game days. So if it's game day on a Saturday, they don't want to scrum during the morning. So they don't scrum on Saturdays, Sundays, or Mondays because those are game days, and they don't want to scrum because it'll upset their balance. They also want time off, right? So they do 5 to 6 scrum days or games a day, and then they do a bit of solo queue. And then they also want some time to relax and do nothing. The Asians, on the other hand, play the whole day. They're basically playing the entire day. They wake up, they scrim, they solo queue, they scrim, they solo queue, they scrim. And they also scrim and solo queue on game days. So when you're playing tonight, you're scrimming this morning. You're practicing this morning because it's a day you can practice, right? They are constantly pulling ahead. Every year they get better, and Europe and NA gets left behind a little bit more. Gets a little bit weaker, gets a little bit worse.
The thing is, how old are these players?
Most of them are in their 20s, early 20s towards, maybe mid-20s.
So let me tell you something. Mm-hmm. Let's talk to these players when they reach their 40s and see how they felt about the decisions that they've made in their 20s.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I'm not focusing on whether one side is better than the other. I'm focusing on the mindset. The mindset of the Asian player is, my job is to play League of Legends. I need to be able to play that game at the best possible level. This means I have to work at it, right?
I don't know if you understand. I mean, we need to talk to these players when they get to their 40s to see where their mental state is at.
No. I fully respect that. but again, it doesn't speak to the mindset, right? From NetEase's perspective, remember, I'm literally just giving you NetEase's perspective here. I'm not commenting on whether it's good or bad. I'm just saying NetEase, being a Chinese company, is looking at European studios going work-life balance. I can't spend all of my time at work. And they're looking at Chinese developers that do most likely spend most of their time at work. And they're going, the Western developers are lazy. We can do so much more with our Asian developers because they're willing to work so much harder, whereas the Western developers are not. Now, this should technically...
But is it the right thing?
Well, here's the thing. Before I get to whether or not I think it's right or wrong, because the Western approach would be the right approach if it led to more creativity. Because technically speaking, when you do work like a little robot, like the Asians tend to do, they work like these robots almost.
Creativity
suffers,
goes away.
Right? But the sad part of that is that's not the reality that we're seeing playing itself out. The Chinese games are a hell of a lot more creative than the Western games coming out. So you're sort of going work-life balance max in the West, robot max in the East, but the West still doesn't... We're not bringing out more creative games. We're not bringing out more sort of innovative games. We're just bringing out slop. Right? So something has to give. Something is wrong. I'm not suggesting that it's what it is. I'm just saying there is a sickness within Western game development that seems to be killing creativity, killing the ability to make games at a decent pace. And I think studios like NetEase are just not interested in investing in that anymore. And considering a lot of our studios sold out to NetEase, NetEase can take all of those IPs and just move them over to China, where those IPs can now be developed by Chinese studios.
I just think that NetEase is a company that can't be trusted. Is where I'm at with that stuff. But it's like I also want to make one thing clear. I'm not as it's a really nuanced position that I have when it comes to the whole work-life thing. Basically, where I'm at is that I crunch a lot.
Yeah, I do too.
Me myself, right? And it's completely different because, like, obviously I'm working for myself. I'm not working for like a company or whatever. I'm working for myself for my channel. So that's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
But it's just like I realize that there are a lot of things that I can't get done unless I crunch like a maniac.
Yeah.
And it's just like I'm not 100% in the field where it's like, oh, you can never work like 2 minutes past your clock. You clock out, you're out.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not 100% in that field. I understand and I respect, and I will say oftentimes, you shouldn't do what I do. It's not fucking healthy. It's actually absolutely terrible for a lot of things. But at the same time, I would not be able to be where I'm at or do what I do without crunching.
Yeah.
So I would say that I'm not in a position where I can completely condemn that practice.
Yeah.
Although I can condemn like extreme situations like we talked about the Blizzard one or whatever. Obviously I can. And I can condemn people being forced to do crunch or getting fired. No, I think it should be an option. But I think that those people that do crunch, they better be fucking really well compensated. Yeah. Like I'm talking brutally compensated.
Yeah.
That's the way that I look at it. Because I then have also heard that some developers are like, well, I didn't crunch and now this person got paid more than me. Well, yes, they did.
Because they crunched.
Guess why?
Because they actually did their jobs, you know. They maybe should.
But I don't think that you should be. I don't think you should be forced into it. No. I don't think you should be peer pressured into it. I don't think it's anything like that. I think that is a personal decision. I just don't think that you should be condemned for engaging in it.
Yeah. No, I
but again,
actually agree with you.
It's like it's a very nuanced position that you can't really just extrapolate. It's like, so you mean everybody should crunch? No. So you mean nobody should crunch? No. Because everybody just instantly jumps to extremes. And it's like, no, I just want a balance wherein somebody that wants to put in more effort, they can, without hurting people that don't want to put in that effort and just want to clock in, clock out every day because of their family or because of whatever reason. I completely understand.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that it's not like usually I'll see an article talking about crunch and it's just like instantly. Like there was this situation with, I think it was Red Dead Redemption 2, where the writers said, oh man, we got together and we just like really banged out the end of the story over Red Bulls and shit. And you know the type of environment that is, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's crunching it and just like, in a way, right? I like some of those times where I'm like actively just focusing on something and crunching it out. Not always, but sometimes it's satisfying because you're seeing a project come together in a way that's just like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's you know, in a lot of ways, it can be creative and a million different things. But again, it needs to be properly managed. That's the thing. And we don't have a culture where we can properly manage that because what ends up happening is somebody crunches and then that just becomes the new norm. It's like, oh, you guys can do this? Okay, that's the new standard. You can't do that. There's a lot of there's a lot of variables to talk about when it comes to that stuff, I feel. Did you get disconnected? I think Akalon got disconnected. I think it's all over.
So yeah, ultimately, I agree with everything you said, although I should just for full context here say that me and Rurikhan got disconnected. And so I didn't hear.
I love how I just got a blank check.
Yeah, Rurikhan was allowed to say whatever he wanted, and I'm just going to say I agree.
Just wait until the internet now knows that you're gay. Got him.
I agree because I don't know what he said. There's like nothing for me to know. But all right, so now that we are here, and I don't know where in the world I guess the next topic falls in.
Is footage. Fable.
Yeah, we have pre-alpha footage for Fable. Now, to be fair, it's a 1 minute sort of video. Like it doesn't showcase much, if anything at all. What did you think, just overwhelmingly, of this? Like, what was your thoughts?
So, number one, it's important to mention it is pre-alpha footage because pre-alpha there's a lot of room for improvement and all of that stuff. The game was delayed to 2026, and what this showed was like, oh man, we got some beautiful backdrops that you can kind of look at. And here's our character doing some basic combat against some enemies. And one thing that did not impress me was the animations, but obviously a lot of these get polished up much later in the game cycle. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't really see much else. I'm looking at it, and the first thing that my brain always goes to is like, are the animations looking good? They look pretty meaty and impactful. And I was like, no. Okay, well, okay. I'm not overly excited for that. The game, in terms of visual fidelity, looks good. That was about it. And
the lead
cool
character,
looking art style, I guess.
The lead character is ugly as balls, which is a mainstay of Western development these days. You can't have cute female characters because apparently women are not cute. They all look like they've been smashed in the face with a brick. Yes, that's literally what the lead character looks like. It looks like someone took a brick and just smashed her face in. Everything looks mush.
I'll say she very much in the same vein as Star Wars Outlaws. She does not look like the female model that they've used for that character.
No. Definitely not. But that's just wasting development. I don't know what the Asians do. They use some voodoo magic or some shit, but in the West, our engines just cannot make women look good. Like, you can have the prettiest model working on the game. The second she gets ported into Unreal Engine, she looks like ass. Basically, like she's gender confused from the start. It's just terrible, dude. I don't understand it. Because, yes, the graphics does look nice. It looks nice. It's not groundbreaking, but, you know, Fable has always been very fantasy, and it does seem like that's what it sort of delivers. I do agree with you. The gameplay that was chosen. Now, I should also just mention, this is pre-alpha footage, but it was put out by them. Right? So this is meant to celebrate their game. And I don't feel like there's anything worth celebrating in what was shown, because the combat looks like combat in a video game. I don't know what to say. It's not
It's a
groundbreaking.
Souls-like. It's got dodges. It's a Souls-like.
But even in the pre-alpha footage that you see, the dodging seems sort of stuttery. It's not flowing. The combat doesn't look like it flows.
The frame rate leaves something to be desired, which makes the animations also not look fantastic. Yes,
Yeah.
but again, pre-alpha.
And there was also this weird thing. Now, this is sometimes indicative of something larger that's going on. But there was a weird moment in one of the fights where, while they're fighting, the character in between animations almost goes back to a resting stance, which just makes it look very awkward. Yeah, they're just finishing swinging the sword, and then they almost go back to just, oh, I'm standing here talking to an NPC, and then swinging the sword again. This could be just pre-render or pre-alpha footage. They haven't really figured out the exact combat timings yet, or it could be indicative of a bigger engine problem that might not even be fixed. We'll see. But I don't feel like... I feel like if this was meant to get me hyped for Fable, it did not do that. I am not hyped for Fable. This, if anything, got me. I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, Fable's coming out. Anyway, let's do the podcast. I wasn't raving and ranting about this new Fable game that's coming out that I should be excited for.
It didn't get me particularly excited for the new Fable either.
No, you're absolutely right. It just sort of made me feel like, oh, this is the new Fable. Okay, yeah, I guess. Not too shabby. But okay, so off from that, because there's not much else to discuss there. It's just a 1-minute video. Let's talk about something that is actually quite fun and quite cool. There's a new rumor that suggests that Steam might be releasing their VR headset, the newest one.
A new one?
Yeah. This one.
So
yeah.
When it comes to VR, I don't know if you've done a lot of VR. I've done a little bit. I wouldn't say that I've done too much VR either. When it comes to VR, I'm like, okay, I need to get something whenever it comes to me trying out VR. I want something that actually allows me to test out a multitude of titles. Yeah. So the first time that I got into VR, this was actually, I tested the product itself because I was able to go to like Gamescom and I tested it. It was the first iteration of PlayStation VR. And so I got into that and I played with it and I was like, this is cool, but the setup of this thing is a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, like an actual nightmare, especially if you're a content creator. The first iteration of PSVR 1 was terrible because you're like, oh, here's this this HDMI cable into this USB cable into this other box into this other thing, and then you're like, yeah, but you set that up once and you're done, right? No, because it also affected the box did not output like 4K. So you'd have to send all your HDMIs that were going into PlayStation through this box, and you would actually lose quality if you were then trying to record stuff off of that box. So it'd be like I'd have to set up the box to do VR, and then I have to take everything apart if I wanted to do a regular recording. It was a nightmare. So I didn't use it nearly as much as I wanted to.
Yeah.
And then PSVR 2 got announced, and I was like, I don't know. I didn't really gel with PSVR 1, so whatever. But PlayStation actually offered to send me a PSVR 2. And I was like, sure, I'll check it out. And so they sent me the thing, and I checked it out, and I was like, okay, this is way better because now it's just one cable. It's a USB-C cable. You plug that into the PlayStation 5, boom, that's it. Everything else just kind of works. And I was like, okay, that is a massive improvement, but still, there is a cable. And that's the thing about VR, because I've tested it so much, I'm like, cables are the downfall of VR. Okay, you want a VR that works wirelessly. But unfortunately, that means you're doing concessions because if it's wireless, then the quality is not going to be as good. And there's a lot of other variables that kind of come into the mix. But the thing about VR is the setup of it needs to be super simple. Like you can't be having this thing where it's like, okay, now I need you to sit down and calibrate. Now stand up and calibrate. Put your controllers in the table so that they calibrate. And it's like, no. You need to get rid. Like, listen, the way that people play video games is like, even in consoles, you're just like, Here's my controller.
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing the video game. And the amount of hoops that you have to jump through with VR makes it like technology is still not there. Now, if Valve is able to do something wherein it's like, look, no bullshit wires, not like the first one that they did, which is like, oh, you need to put sensors on every fucking corner of your living room. Yeah. It's like, no, none of that. You need to put on the VR headset, and that needs to be all of the setup that needs to be done, because it's already annoying. Putting on a VR headset is annoying because you have to put it on, then you have to adjust it, and heaven forbid you wear glasses like me, because you're fucked, because like it might push your glasses inward a little bit, smudge up against your eyelids, and then it's just like blur city. Okay? Yeah. Because all you're seeing is that your eyelids smudge on your fucking glasses and nothing else. Yeah. So it needs to be super simple to where you just pick up the headset, put it on your head, and you're good to go. It can't be any more like turn around 3 times, do a backflip, and then put your controllers in the ground. Like, no, that is the only way that VR will work. I need to be able to just put on the headset and I'm good to go.
Okay,
so any more setup is unacceptable. You can't speak. I'm gonna keep.
Okay, but let me give you the leak. So this comes from Game Follower over on X. This is an account that's known for leaking stuff within Valve and within Steam.
Okay.
So this is the exact quote from them. Several people have confirmed that Valve is aiming to release a new standalone wireless VR headset, codenamed Decade, by the end of 2025. The current price for the full bundle is set to be $1,200, including some in-house games or demos that are already done.
Let me ask you something. Did you say standalone?
Standalone. But you'll
So as in you don't need a PC?
I'll get it. I'll get to it. Just keep listening.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Valve want to give the user the best possible experience without cutting any costs. Even at the current price, it will be sold at a loss. A few months ago, we saw leaked models of controllers, codenamed Roy, in the Steam VR update. It will be using the same Steam OS from Steam Deck, but adapted for virtual reality. One of the core features is the ability to play flat-screen games that are already playable on Steam Deck, but in VR on a big screen without a PC. The first behind closed doors presentations could start soon. So it seems like Valve took the technology of the Steam Deck. And for those of you that don't think that the Steam Deck was a technological breakthrough. Being able to put something that powerful into that small of a space and have it be that high quality and fidelity is kind of unheard of, right? Because the smallest we've really been able to go that would give you that quality was laptops. For every other handheld, at least up until that point, you would be sacrificing a lot of power and performance in order to get it on that small little space there. So the Steam and a lot of the Steam Deck's quality came from SteamOS. The fact that they finally made an OS that doesn't bog down the bloody specifications and takes most of the performance was the big breakthrough. It would appear, at least reading this is a full stand-alone VR headset. In other words, you buy the headset, it's wirelessly connected to the internet, you download the games, you play them without any connection to a PC, any need to be on a PC. It's on the headset itself. Now, from there, I should just add a couple of things, and that is weight. Weight becomes a real big feature here. You see, you might think, I don't know what the Steam Deck really weighs, but I'm going to assume probably kilo, 2 kilos maybe, for all of those
I don't know. I don't own one, so yeah.
Yeah, but I would say like your handouts, how much do they weigh? They definitely don't weigh nothing. Your handouts, you do have handouts. How much do they weigh?
Like this feels like less than a kilo almost. This is a Vita.
Okay.
I think the Switch is probably less than a kilo, which would be the current like handheld standard almost. Like let me see. Switch weight. Actually, no, it's way less than a kilo. It's 297 grams. But I don't think that's counting the controllers.
So the Steam Deck is about 669 grams. So
okay,
it's
yeah,
not,
they say 390 grams. I think this would include a controller, so less than half a kilo. Yeah.
Yeah. But for those of you that might not, so VR headsets are already quite weighty with all of the monitors and the technology that you're putting in there.
Yeah.
Now,
it's way heavier than the Switch,
yeah,
for sure. The one that I have.
Now, to put it into context, 669 grams in your hand is nothing. It feels like air. On your head, over hours of gameplay, anyone that's ever used a headset, any sort of quality headset, will know heavy headsets do fatigue you a lot. Because your neck is holding this weight up the whole time, even if you're not thinking about it. All those little neck muscles. I used to have a headset, the Corsair one. It was like a giant wireless Corsair headset that I had. And this thing was weighty. And I could never understand why after like 4 or 5 hours of gameplay, I would start to get like a headache right here at the back. I could never understand it. But right here at the back, there would be like this small little headache coming. And then I got these headsets, which this headset weighs like nothing. And it went away completely. Just gone. No more headaches. Because this thing weighs nearly nothing, whereas that headset is dragging on you. So adding another, like maybe not 669, because obviously you lose the screen and you lose the controllers and stuff, but you're still adding weight to this thing because you're building a lot of the power of this thing now into the headset itself. That could make it so that it's almost uncomfortable to wear.
See, the thing is, when it comes to a VR headset, the weight isn't even the biggest problem. The biggest problem is actually all of the straps and stuff that are around your head pressuring your head.
Yeah.
That is the biggest issue. Because in order for it to be stable on your head, because you can't just have the whole thing jiggling all over the place, it needs to be stable.
Yeah.
There needs to be pressure. So depending on the different fixation system that they're going to be using, I know that the Oculus used to have those elastic bands. When it comes to the PlayStation one, it's almost like, you know, those construction hats? They have like the plastic that you kind of wrap around your head.
Yep.
It's a system somewhat similar to that, except it's got like a screw in the back that you just kind of like crank into place. And there's a lot of pressure on your head. So usually you'd get headaches, not from the weight, but from the pressure in the head. So I don't think that weight is the biggest problem. The biggest problem is the fixation system, whatever they use to put that in your head.
To put it into sort of perspective, a headset that weighs, say, 800 grams, kind of okay. The second it gets to 1 kilogram, no longer okay. Now your neck is doing severe lifting to keep that shut up. Because we think you're just sitting.
Get your traps workout, bro. Come on now.
Well,
get some gains.
The thing is, you think that you're just sitting here, right? You're just sitting here, nothing. But while we're sitting, all your neck muscles is keeping your head up. Like if your neck muscles disappeared right now, your head would just be fully.
And listen, and let me tell you something. When you're big brained like me, they're getting a workout every day.
Yeah. Obviously. So for Rurikhan, it's even harder.
This big wrinkled brain of mine.
So it's gonna be interesting to see. But this is the thing that I always look to Valve for. If there is one company that seems to be at the forefront of innovation every single time, it is Valve. They seem to constantly come up with these almost mind-bending things that you don't expect to come out, and they just do it well. I'm still not a fan of VR. I'm going to be open and honest about that. I've never been a fan of VR. I genuinely believe VR it's a niche, and it's not a scam.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you the best use cases for VR as somebody who has done VR.
Yeah,
it is games where you're in a cockpit. Or you're in, the driver's seat of a car or something like that. These are the best use cases because that's what we're doing, right? We're sitting down.
Yeah.
We're sitting down Feels good. If it's a video game where it's like, oh, you're in first person mode or whatever, yeah, we haven't solved the situation of movement and it feels super awkward. Whereas if you're in a cockpit, you can get very much super immersed. Like one of the best VR games right now, for PlayStation at least, is hands down No Man's Sky. It's fantastic. No Man's Sky is like a new game when you're in VR. Feels great, looks phenomenal, really well done. In the PC side of things, I would say Elite Dangerous is probably the one. It just feels so good. You're inside your spaceship, you're looking around, you're seeing all the things. You can actually look while you're in combat. It's crazy. It's really good. Yeah. But like whenever you try getting to some other experiences, I don't know, dude. It's just a little bit rough.
But this is where I'm looking towards Valve, right? Because Gabe is one of the reasons.
I've heard that Alex was one of the best VR games ever made. I've never played it.
So Half-Life Alex, one of the things that this is where Gabe sort of spoke about this. One of the problems that VR has not been able to solve is the problem of motion sickness. Oh, yeah. When you're moving, so just walking,
and the screens are so close. Let me tell you something about that.
Yeah.
The year is 2013. This is when Oculus is like getting started. The very first company that did VR.
Yeah.
I'm in a room with Palmer Luckey.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, dude. So and back then, 2013, that's what they're telling me. The biggest problem we haven't solved yet is VR sickness.
Yeah.
And now it's 2025, 12 years later, biggest problem we haven't solved yet is VR sickness.
Yeah.
Like, this is fucked. They've been at it for 12 years. They still haven't solved it. But it is insane.
It makes sense why they can't solve it. One of the reasons, for those of you that might not, one of the reasons on PC, the field of view slider should always be at least 90 is because you're sitting far closer to the screen. On console, they're expecting that you'll be sitting at least 2 meters, a meter, maybe more away from your screen. So there, a 70 field of view with larger screens, because TV screens tend to be much larger than PC, the field of view isn't going to be that bad. When you're sitting close to a screen, 70 creates, at least for me, it doesn't everyone, a lot of people don't get it, but I get super motion sickness. Like, if I'm playing a game that doesn't give me at least 90 field of view, I can play for less than half an hour and I have a headache and I can no longer continue to play. So field of view is super important. The problem with VR is obviously you've taken, if console, the screen is 2 to 3 meters away from you, not 3, but let's say 1.5 to 2 meters away from you. PC, the screen is usually quite close.
In my case right now, it's like a meter and change.
Yeah, but usually between a meter and less is where a screen would normally be when you're playing. Because I'm assuming when you're playing, you're sitting a bit closer or whatever. The VR is right here, right? Like it is mere millimeters away from
literally
you.
In your face.
Yeah. So their field of view can't even be 90. It needs to be way over 100 to maybe even begin to combat the motion sickness. But now you're also, the other problem is every movement in the game moves the screen. But remember, the reason motion sickness happens is there's movement that's taking place
but your body is not actually moving. Yes.
Yeah, your body isn't moving alongside it. That's why when I sit at the back in a car, I get motion sickness.
Like, let me tell you, there was this game that they first supported in the original PSVR, which was called Drive Club.
Yeah.
Here's what I called that game after trying to play it in VR. It was the Vomit Comet, okay? I played that thing for like 20 minutes in a live stream, and I was like, guys, I don't feel so good. I need to go lie down. I had to lie down in a couch for 2 hours to recover.
Yeah.
If it was that bad, it's just like, bro, like, I'm about to fucking die. It felt so bad.
But this is where Half-Life Alyx solved it. The movement is blink. So you want to move somewhere, you just blink there. I'm going to be very interested because I know this is one of Gabe's biggest problems. He wants to solve the movement issue. And Gabe, for those of you that don't know why Steam is usually, or Valve is usually at the forefront of development, Valve doesn't release things just for bottom line. That's not how Valve operates. If they were, we would already be on Half-Life 7 at this point.
Oh, yeah. Easily.
Valve only releases things when it technologically advances the genre of whatever they're focused on. Right now, Valve is VR obsessed. I think this headset may have solved the movement issues.
I hope so. Listen, tell you what, Steam sent me a review unit.
Steam,
I'll test it out.
I'll test it out. Like if Steam wants to. I've never played VR, so it'll be good. But yeah, so
you would get sick so fast if you've never played it. Like your first time, you get sick so fast.
It's one of the reasons I don't play it is because I get sick so fast with this stuff. It's just not worth it for me. But all right, so now on to another story that I quickly wanted to discuss here because I happened to play it, and I think Solasta. So let's talk quickly Solasta. Okay. It is very similar to Baldur's Gate, although one of the cool things about this demo is it's literally a complete standalone mission that isn't found in the base game. So they literally made
a. So it's like an intro mission.
Yeah, well, like not even an intro. It's it's an entire little piece of the world that they created entirely just for the demo.
Wow, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. Now, in this, because it's this, I can't really comment on what the story is because the story is unique to the demo, so I'm not sure even if the story relates to the main game, but the story was really well told. Everything is voice acted. One of the cool things in the game is when you're talking to people and you want to respond, all of your party members, you have 4 people in your party, all of them can respond. And each of them have...
Do you get to choose?
Yeah, you choose which one you want to respond with. Because each of them will have different bonuses on their response and success rates based on the class that they are, their alignment, the skills that they have. So if you're asking a question, you might want to go with the guy that has the higher insight because he's going to have a lot more success asking this question because he has a lot more insight, or the persuasion guy. So unlike in Baldur's Gate 3, where all of it would just sort of automatically be given to your main character, he just automatically has this. Here, every single party member has their place, and it is used by that. Lockpicking works the same way as in Baldur's Gate. You need to get the thief to lockpick, at least in the game. It appears as if there's a warrior. There's a monk. Not a monk. What was Shadowheart? Cleric. There's the thief, and then there's the wizard. So those 4 classes were present, but if you go on the website, they have way more classes that will be playable when the game goes live. Because the demo is a pre-made. You don't even have a character creator. It's literally just 4 pre-made characters that they give you. Every pre-made character is voiced. So you have the different voices of your party members. The movement is where it gets really cool. So game looks pretty, there's nothing wrong with that. The movement is really cool. So you can either play classic movement, this will be Baldur's Gate click and move, or you can play WASD.
That's good.
Now,
can you not play WASD on Baldur's Gate 3?
I'm not sure. I've never tried because I just sort of accepted that click to move is the baseline for CRPGs most of the time. So I just sort of accepted it.
I think I played mouse and keyboard, but I don't even remember.
It is on console, so technically it should allow for WASD because it clearly does have the ability to move in real time, right? Mm-hmm. But here's what makes this really cool. So in Diablo, or in Baldur's Gate 3, sorry, if you want to jump up on something, you have to physically hit the jump key and then it jumps up. In this game, when you're in WASD, spacebar is jump, is vault, is descend, is everything. And the map makes incredible use of verticality. Like the map is pretty big, but then it's also vertical. So you're climbing up or down things or jumping over things constantly, and it feels so smooth and fun to just see your party members sort of go and there's constantly quips between them. They're giving each other shit. There's clearly some characters that don't really get along with each other, so they're sort of, hashing it out. It was super fun. The combat is also very bare bones in the demo. You sort of get the baseline class, but there's things already in there that shows you what the future of the combat is going to be. So, for example, when I want to cast my fireball, I hit fireball, and then it brings up a sort of menu at the bottom that I then accept. So I confirm that I want to cast fireball on that. And when you read a little bit, you realize that window that is brought up introduces the iterations of fireball that you might want to be casting depending on, right? So
variations on the fireball spell?
Yeah. So as you level up, you're going to be able to unlock variations based on the talents that you choose that will change the way your fireball interacts. So you can choose close-up fireball, which will impact the accuracy of the fireball, but also the damage of the fireball. Or you can activate these special magic items that the wizard has that allows him to use a special resource that then doubles the distance of the fireball, right? Or you can use another special resource that doubles the power, but then it uses all three of those resources, and then you have to rest afterwards. So resting is in the game. Long rest, short rest, depending on what you need to reset. It's really fun. It was a really fun experience. It's about 3 hours, the demo, so it's not like it's the longest game in the world.
3 hours?
Yeah.
That's pretty generous for a demo.
Yeah, well, it's about an hour if you're just rushing the main story, but I spent almost 5 hours in the demo because I was exploring everything.
That checks.
Yeah, I was exploring everything. For those of you that don't know why Rurikhan is saying that checks, I still haven't finished Baldur's Gate 3, and I have over 150 hours played. And I'm on one character. I take very long to because I'm exploring every nook and cranny.
Akalon doesn't finish games.
I also don't finish a lot of games. I play a lot of games, I just don't finish them. But Solasta 2 is super fun. And I think if you were fond of Baldur's Gate 3, you're going to be fond of Solasta 2. And for those from my side of the community, I've seen everything in this game, and there's not a single pronoun in sight.
Oh, God.
None of your characters have pronouns. They're just cool characters. And you can be a dwarf.
Okay, being a dwarf, that's like a big plus. See, that's actually one of the main reasons why I ended up not playing Avowed, is because there's some cool dwarves in that game, but you can't be one. And it's just like, well, what's the point of having cool dwarves if I can't even be one? Like, what do you mean? I don't want to just interact with dwarves. I want to be one. I don't want to be a mushroom person from Last of Us. I want to be a dwarf.
It has some downsides, but this could be due to the demo, so I'm not sort of too focused on those at the moment. But one of the downsides were I walked into the mayor's house and I robbed her blind. And as I walked into the house, she said, "I will be checking my belongings before you leave." And I just left with all of her shit. And she did nothing. Like, nothing happened. I just left. So I'm not sure if that was just because of the demo.
She knew better than to mess with you. That's what's up.
My dwarf is quite intimidating.
Wait, you were playing a dwarf?
Well, you have 4 pre-made characters in your party, and the leader is sort of the dwarf.
Hell yeah! I like this game already.
So you're playing the dwarf character. But you play all 4, right? So it's like Diablo 3, Baldur's Gate 3 in this regard. You play all 4 characters, but because the dwarf is the tank, you play with the tank, right? As the main character. But yeah, it was quite fun. The graphics are really cute, really charming. It looks like a good game. But since we're talking about video games now, maybe we should talk about
in the video games
game
podcast.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about your game that's coming out.
Monster Hunter Wilds is peak. It is coming out on Friday, and it is an absolute blast. So I've played 55 hours of it up until this point. I did more of a critical path playthrough because I'm going to be replaying the game for stream and that's when I'm going to take my time to actually stop and smell the roses. The hunting action is absolutely phenomenal. I loved it. They have a bigger focus on story this time around, and it's going to be an interesting story that is going to be controversial among the Monster Hunter community. Not for any reasons that you'd be upset over, Akalon, before you get... Okay.
I was about to say, Monster Hunter went woke. I was about to make that video, but it's good.
No. It's because of other reasons. Because some of the direction that they took in the story, because of the lore of Monster Hunter, I think a lot of people are going to be like, wait, they did what? They're like, even to me, as I was going through it, I was like, it's like as things were getting revealed, I was like, we're really going here? That's friggin' insane.
Okay.
But I respect the bold decision that they've made, and I actually liked it. I liked the story. I thought it was cool, but I think it's definitely going to be one of those that is not going to land with everybody.
When you say they've taken a bigger approach to story, in regards to what, like percentage-wise, how much more is their story than compared to any of the other Monster Hunter games?
It's not about it having more or less story. It's about the way that the game is structured. So in most Monster Hunter games, the way that things go is like you go into the game and then there's a specific structure where, okay, you're in a hub town, you pick up a quest, and then there's a loading screen and you go on a quest. Now, usually there's some stuff that you'll do in the hub town, like, okay, you're going to go in here, you're going to eat your meal before you hunt. After you eat the meal, you prepare your consumables, and then you go and you launch the hunt. And the hunt is like its little instance thing where it's like, here's this big map. The monster is in here somewhere. Find it, hunt it, and then you go back to the hub. And that's kind of like the structure. That's the Monster Hunter structure. World now. This one is very different because it's more like, all right, we're going to go into the open world. Hey, something happened while we were doing this cutscene. Now there's a hunt. And then you finish that hunt, and then they're like, all right, now we're going to give you some more story. And then someone's like, here's another hunt. And then you hunt again. It's not like that whole thing of going back and forwards between the hub, which we've been used to in Monster Hunter. You can still do it like that if you want. Like the hunt starts, and you could be like, I don't want to do it. I want to go to the hub, and then I want to come back. You can play it like that, but the game is very much designed to be more action adventure, kind of like guiding you along the story and doing all of that, which I got used to after a while, but it's a very different structure in the beginning. Closer to the end, you kind of, once you get the high rank and stuff where you're just grinding and getting better, at that point, it reverts more back to what you expect of like, okay, I'm going to hunt this monster. Now I'm going to get some consumables. Now I'm going to hunt this monster. It becomes a little bit more, but it flows better and it is much more immersive than previous Monster Hunter games.
Is it safe to say that it's maybe a bit more noob friendly in that regard?
It is absolutely more. It is the most noob friendly Monster Hunter we've seen so far. Their intention does appear to be to capitalize as much as possible on the popularity of Monster Hunter World and to gather a bigger audience. As a matter of fact, another thing is this is also one of the easier Monster Hunters that people will experience. So the difficulty has been toned down significantly, and your companion, which you have that cat, that's your companion, the Palico, is super powerful and super useful. Like, you take a bit of damage, he's in there healing you. You get poisoned, he's in there curing you. He's just, like, super useful. To the point where, I think in my stream playthrough, I might not even use the Palico, because I'm just like, this Palico's busted, okay? Really, really powerful. So
could it be a bit of a balance issue? So they're going to be rebalancing it for launch?
I don't know.
Or might this
hope that they do.
Might this be almost like an Elden Ring thing where you have the tools available if you want to use them, but you don't have to use them?
Because it's by default. By default, you have the Palico. It's not like you choose to use the Palico. He's just there. And you have to opt out of using the Palico.
Yeah, but you can still opt out, right? So you can create.
You can opt
the
out.
more
difficult.
You
can create a more challenging. Yeah, but I don't think that's the point. I think that the point is they're trying to bring in more people to play the game, and I know that veterans, some people are going to be upset over the difficulty of the game, but I think that what is happening is they're going to bring people in, and then as people learn how to play with the title updates, because that's the thing. When you're getting into Monster Hunter Wilds, when you're getting into any Monster Hunter game, you're not just getting the base game. You're getting the base game, and then you're getting like more than 1 year's worth of updates usually. Usually a year and 18 months, maybe even more, depending on how long they choose to support this for. And then eventually that character carries over into the G rank expansion, and that's where they're really going to bring in the pain. But I expect that some of the title updates that we're getting are going to be significantly more challenging than what we have currently in the game. And I think that's where the difficulty is going to come in. But I wanted that difficulty to come in a little bit earlier is what I'm getting at. So
I can imagine.
I'm going to be coming up with my own way of, making the game more challenging for myself, basically.
But I think also at the same time, it's going to be the same sort of criticism that was lobbed against Elden Ring by sort of Souls purists. And please understand, I'm not criticizing people who are Soul purists. You should gatekeep your game as much as possible.
You don't want that. They'll hurt you.
Yeah, but no, to be fair, I think we've seen the effects of not gatekeeping games in the industry. There should be a modicum of gatekeeping. I think sometimes things can go a little bit far and people can just sort of lose perspective. But I think also at the same time, the success of Elden Ring speaks volumes of trying to make a game that is more friendly to a general audience. But I do hope, Vane, that the title updates and all of the updates that follow, actually, now that you got people into the game, right? There's more people playing it. I'm going to be playing Monster Hunter for the first time with Wild. So
hell yeah.
Now that we have this, now you do absolutely service the core audience. And you try to turn all of these casual Andes into core audience fans rather than continuously just bringing out more and more accessibility features for the sort of more casual audience. Because I think that will ultimately hurt the game. Whereas Elden Ring did it perfectly. You do have access to all of these more casual friendly approaches, but you can still play the game 100% on the most difficult level that, sort of Souls purists prefer it as. So yeah, I think the game was fun. The demo that I played, I really had a lot of fun. Do I think Monster Hunter is going to be my game? No, because I'm not really...
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Akalon. Convert!
Yeah, but I'm not really that type of player, right? That's not my type of games.
Not yet.
If Monster Hunter had base building and some logistical challenges to the base building, I would 100% be in that.
Listen, we got Preach. We're going to get you too. Just you wait.
The thing is, Preach, I don't think cares about the same games that I do. I mean, I play indie games that build bases and set up logistical structures.
Preach is playing Factorio right now.
Yeah.
As we're recording this.
But Preach isn't like, I'm sort of like, I would say, the same way that you're sort of like a Souls-like Monster Hunter guy, and those are the games that you really enjoy. For me, base building games, sim games, colony sim games is my jam.
You're going to build a base from all these monster materials is what you're doing.
Yeah, okay? I would do that.
Carve them up and make a little castle.
If they allowed that, if they had like a Monster Rush feature where I build a base and the monsters rush and I have to defend the base, I would play that. The shit out of that.
They did that in Sunbreak.
With towers and shit that shoot the monsters. I would 100% go nuts for that. But fundamentally, this is... I can see this being sort of a filler game for me. When I have nothing else to do, I just jump in Monster Hunter and I have some fun. Killing monsters.
How dare you talk about my game as a filler game? I'm exiting this podcast.
You're not even playing my games. Like, you're not even doing me the respect of trying my games.
What are your games? Name one game.
Foundation, Begonia, Ixion.
No, that
just some of my games that I love playing. Dude, Foundation is really good. If you haven't played Foundation yet, if you're into RTS, base building, sort of, Foundations is phenomenal. Like, what a game. It is so fun. But yeah, that's it, I think. I think that's the whole podcast.
That is it for today, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. You'll probably watch this on Saturday, because Saturday, we already started launching on Saturday, so now I don't want to, launch earlier and then confuse people, because people were already confused with Saturday's launch. Like, there were quite a few comments from people going, "Wait, is it
This
Monday
isn't Monday."
already?"
It's good to know that people figure out what day of the week it is
Based
as to
on the
when our podcast comes out. We love you guys.
Some
Thank you.
guy seeing our podcast and going, "I must work." Shit. But yeah, we absolutely love you guys. Thank you.
If anything happens in Thursday or Friday, we did not address it because we recorded Wednesday morning. So
Yes.
it's my fault. I take the blame, and hopefully we make it up for you.
But
guys
also,
next
he's
week.
not. Just so you know.
I'm not, because I'm gonna play the fuck out of Monster Hunter Wilds, bro.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be an absolute degenerate.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what's happening.
Yeah. But okay, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. We hope you had fun. We had a ton of fun. As always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, because it does help out. Be good to each other, be kind to each other, and we will see all of you in the next one. Peace.